again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed, exciting, scintillating episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. I'm Jim Cornette, and today on the program, we're going to talk about fights in Texas, wrestlers on Mars, an impeached asshole. We'll talk to Dr. Tom Prichard on training the modern generation and the Wednesday Night Wars. One show dunked, the other show drowned, ladies and gentlemen. And to join me in all this fine conversation, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard podcast network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, and he once gave swimming lessons to Mary Jo Kopechne, your friend and mine, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here for another scintillating episode of the Jim Cornette Experience.
The Mary Jo Kopechne line may be too esoteric for this crowd. I was keeping with the nautical motif, but it's also a politically charged time in our country. Combine the two of those, what do you get? Bupkis, apparently from you.
The nautical motif of this episode, I guess. Well, one dunked, one drowned, I guess so.
Yeah, yes, because the show was on a boat and blah, blah, blah. The love boat, you know, the Captain Steubing jokes. I figured if Captain Steubing could get on national TV, I could fucking do a Mary Jo Kopechne line on a goddamn podcast. But anyway, there is a new motto that I'm going to live my life by that I heard in watching some of the impeachment coverage. And I didn't even catch because I was listening while I was doing some other work, but I can't even attribute it to the right person. But when you walk past something substandard and do nothing about it, it becomes the new standard. Of course, in this case, they were talking about a piece of shit like Donald Trump actually being the president of the United States. But it brought up, to my mind at least, I guess I'm just a crusader, Brian. I'm just a valiant, caped crusader fighting for seriousness and justice in pro wrestling, because when I just can't take the check. I just can't just bite my tongue. When I walk past something substandard in an industry that I have devoted much of my life to and cared so much about and do nothing about it, it becomes the new standard, and I feel I must do something about it. I must call out outlaw mud show bullshittery where it exists.
No! Let everyone have fun! The business has evolved! You're old!
Thank you, Mrs. Spencer.
Ah!
I hope you die in the next 32 seconds, you and your homosexual Brian.
Oh, God, we should actually, for the 30th anniversary of The Old Lady, in honor of Dennis Corluzzo, we should release the Old Lady DVD, re-release it, or the CD with the proceeds going to some form of charity, possibly for Alzheimer's or whatever it was that she might have had.
It's on YouTube.
Is it on YouTube? Old Lady's on YouTube.
I put it on YouTube a long while back with some custom Travis Heckle artwork of an old lady, I believe, with you tied to a chair while she yells. But there may be some new listeners who have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, and this is a good time then to tell them to go check out the YouTube channel, isn't it?
That's right. Well, that would actually be on the old channel, the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. It's in the archives.
Well, check out both of them. The Arcadian Vanguard channel for some of the old back archives and the official Jim Cornette channel on YouTube. And subscribe while you're at it. It's free. It costs nothing. It's good for you. It promotes hair growth. So subscribe to the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. And while we're on the subject, a figures update, an update on my figure, so to speak. We said last week on the program, I'm not going to go into such explicit detail as I did about how long it took and the delays, etc. However, the official Legends figure of Jim Cornette from Figures Toy Company is back in stock at jimcornette.com. Cornette's Collectibles for a limited time only, because as we mentioned, we thought we were ordering for like the 4 months it used to take to get these things. It took over a year. So there are now, I said there were going to be less than 500. Now, as a week later, there are barely over 400 of the original version of my Legends figure available for the calendar year of 2020. And when these are gone, they're going to be gone till at least next year. And there is supposed to be a different colored variant that will be coming out in a few months, I guess, because those are taking even longer. And now there's going to be limited in number as well. So get your tickets early and get your figures even quicker. We do have all the orders as of Wednesday, January 22nd, except the internationals, take a couple days longer, are in the mail, I believe, at this point. And except for a few stray Mid-Atlantic film sets, got to make more DVD sets again. But also Burger Towels are back in action, ladies and gentlemen. Burger Towels once again available. They were sold out before Christmas. My best-selling graphic novel from IDW, Behind the Curtain, remains a brisk seller. The only place you can get autographed Behind the Curtains for $19.95, for fuck's sake. I just give this shit away, is at JimCornette.com. The only place you can get those autographed. And also, while I'm talking about it, the Houston Wrestling Spectacular, 4 hours of classic Houston wrestling from the Sam Houston Coliseum and the archives of Paul Bosch, including the 1960s full-length confrontation between Wild Bull Curry and Johnny Valentine that is the stuff of legend and is a myth-making performance by both men. All at JimCornette.com. I await you trying to give me a nervous breakdown again by spending your money wisely with Cornette's Collectibles and sending me to running to Bree at the post office in a state of disarray.
Have they figured out yet at the post office how much money you're making?
They haven't figured out how much I'm making, but I've told them how much I'm spending there.
Oh, they know.
Just to make sure they're aware of that.
What was their reaction? I mean, that's a...
well, Bree told me I almost paid her salary last year. So I'm doing a service also to keep the postal service in business for the good of all of us. I'm a public servant. I'm here at your disposal, ladies and gentlemen. I service you at every given opportunity. Anyway, we got a letter. I got an email that brought up a distant memory that I had not thought of, a story that I haven't told. And boy, those things are rare these days. So I thought we'd capitalize on this and ride this for all it's worth. David wrote me. It's a kind of, I'll edit some of the email, but talks about the fact that he attended a show in North Texas. It was a junior high school gym in North Texas back in your early days with world-class wrestling. It was a great show and about 1,200 people attended. A melee broke out during the contest you were managing, and mid-match you were attacked by an angry fan sitting at ringside. I'll tell you why I remember this incident now here in a couple seconds. But David says you defended yourself admirably by smacking the nut job with your tennis racket and getting in several well-aimed kicks. Seconds later, our principal, a 250-pound ex-college football star, came out of nowhere and executed a perfectly devastating form tackle on the unfortunate, unruly idiot. The first thing that hit the gym floor was the miscreant's gourd. The principal then put a perfect chokehold on the attacker. The principal was then joined by 2 or 3 sheriff's deputies. Yeah, it continued to escalate, who handcuffed the now groggy would-be attacker and threw him headfirst into 2 double steel doors. You know those exit doors in a high school gym with the bars across them? The double door thing?
Yeah.
Head first, boy, boom, and they flew open. Then out into the parking lot, and David says, and into a squad car. Actually, it may not be quite accurate, as we'll talk about in a second. But here's one thing that tickled me about this email. The unique part of this story is on your 3rd or 4th swing, your solid gold diamond ring in the shape of the state of Texas flew out into the crowd and was lost. Wait a minute. I'll tell you. I believe the ring was ultimately returned to you, ? After that same principal did an extensive search. Those of us in attendance knew even then you would forever be a force to reckon with in professional wrestling. The matches were great that night, and the unplanned non-kayfabe ? Mid-match riot was a classic. As a 15-year-old in attendance, I learned you, Jim Cornette, could handle yourself well in a hostile environment, and there were people in the world like the principal, Mr. Rosenberg, I didn't want to fuck with. He's retold the story to his kids and now his grandkids. Hope this jogs your memory. David, thank you. It did. I have to clarify a couple of... Here's what happened. I remember this because in Dallas in World Class, they had such a small crew. I mean, everybody was always at the Sportatorium and on television or whatever, but when they would run these spot shows, as we've talked about, if you were in Corsicana, Texas, the other night same night another show might be in Seguin, Texas, down south, or just wherever, they would run on the Thursdays and sometimes the Tuesdays or whatever. They'd run 2 events in the same night, split crew. So the spot shows at these high schools would start out with a single match like Kelly Kaniski against Brian Diaz, right? And then they'd have a captain's match, which was a nice way of saying that 2 guys out of the tag match, either the Midnight Express or the Fantastics, had to work twice, because the captain's match was the supposed captain of the team. Like Dennis Condrey would work one night against Bobby Fulton, the next night Bobby Eaton would work against Tommy Rogers. So they'd vary it up so it wasn't same guys being put upon constantly, but they would have a captain's match. Then they would have some 2 matches or a tag match with some combination of Kevin and Kerry against Chris Adams, Gino Hernandez, or the one-man gang. And somebody, maybe they'd have Kerry versus Gino in one town and Chris versus Kevin in the other town, or Gang versus Kerry in one town. And there was always another babyface floating around, like Hercules Hernandez or Iceman Parsons or whatever, and another heel like a Rip Oliver, or, you know, whatever the case. So you could, basically that was the fucking crew, right? And they'd always put our tag match on last, even though the Von Erich versus whoever was billed as the main event, because that way they could leave early. And then they were saying, well, we're giving you a break in between the match you wrestle earlier and the last match you can rest up, right? Anyway, now that we've established this, one thing was for sure, I was going to appear twice every night because of the captain's match and then the tag match. So generally, sometimes we would do something where the heel would slip over in the captain's match just to have more interest in the tag match, where ultimately the Fantastics, the babyfaces, would win. But most of the time, we'd put them over twice because what the fuck, it's a spot show, and why get any heat? But one of the standard finishes we had for these singles matches, especially when the dressing rooms were separate, you couldn't talk to each other, was that I would jump up on the apron of the ring when the referee would maybe get an inadvertent thumb in the eye. And I would jump up on the apron of the ring as Bobby Fulton staggered over to me, and I'd grab him, and Dennis would run. And right at the last second, Bobby would move out of the way, and Dennis would boot me in the stomach or nail me, and I'd drop off the apron, and Bobby would roll Dennis up. Referee would recover 1, 2, 3, and then Bobby'd roll out on the floor and leave the heels in the ring to bitch. People would be, oh, fuck you, right? So this happens. But I must have, when we went out there, there was one more thing that came into play here. Did I ever tell you about the shitty spot show ring, Brian, that World Class Wrestling had, that on some of these little spot shows around the Dallas Metroplex, they would use this little shitty ring?
You didn't, and I was actually going to ask you about the ring, because I know the ring in the Sportatorium was notoriously awful. I was going to say, what were the spot show rings like in World Class?
Okay, well, this was I've never seen a ring like this before that they had. They used it in some of the shows around the DFW area just because they had a guy that would haul it with a fucking trailer, right? The Sportatorium ring was hard and didn't have any give and was all mildewed from all those years and all the sweat and everything and blah, blah, blah. But it looked good for television. You didn't realize, that the guys were killing themselves on it. But this spot show ring they used, it was a smaller ring, like a 16-foot ring, but I've never seen a ring built like that. I think the guy literally built it in his backyard. There was no apron on the ring. And I will explain this. What makes the apron of the ring is the turnbuckles that are attached to the ring post, and they're generally about 18-inch long, maybe 2 feet turnbuckles that the rope then attaches to. You turn it, that's why they call them a turnbuckle, because you turn them to tighten them. But it turns that corner of the ropes, right? And because the ropes then, if you've got a ring that's 18 feet square, the ropes sit in a couple of feet. So inside the roped area is about 16 feet. You follow me? Yeah. Well, in this case, there were no turnbuckles. The ropes attached to just this short little buckle onto the ring posts. So the ropes were literally almost flush with the ring post, so there was no apron of the ring that you could, like the partner would stand on in a tag match, or that you would get up on. In a tag match, they actually had this apparatus built. A wooden thing, like a wooden platform about 2 feet wide, that attached onto the ring post in 2 of the corners. And it went about 2 or 3 feet out from the post on each side, and that's what you had to stand on to take the tag in a tag match. Otherwise, if you had your feet on the edge of the ring and you were holding onto the ropes, you were completely perpendicular. There was no way, you were leaning backwards, right? The balance was off because there was nothing to stand on outside the ropes. So we had called this finish without knowing that was the fucking ring. So I'm like, fuck, when I get out there, I told Dennis, I said, just give me, I can get up there. Just give me a second and I'll hold on good, right? We can do it anyway. Okay. So as the spot comes about, the referee takes a thumb in the eye, and Bobby and Dennis maybe have had a collision, and Bobby staggers over with his back towards me. I climb up on this thing, so I've got my feet on the edge of the ring. The balls of my feet are on the edge of the ring, and I'm holding onto the top rope so I don't fall backwards because I've got nothing to stand on. And with my right hand, I hold onto the rope, and I grab Bobby, and I pull him toward me, and I've got him loosely held with one arm because he's going to fucking get out anyway, right? As I see Dennis starting to get up and come charging toward me, somebody has hooked me around the waist from behind and is trying to pull me backwards. And I'm like, what the fuck? I quickly deduced, since I could see everybody else in the match, that this was a fucking mark, right? And what the fuck? I'm holding on to the rope with my right hand. I've still got my left hand around Bobby's fucking neck. And I've got the racket in my left hand that I'm holding around. And that's the only thing keeping me up on this thing. And I turn around and I see this guy's got me. He's gotten out of ringside somehow, and he's got me around the fucking waist. So the only thing I can do is I turn around and take a fucking backswing at him with the racket. And he sees it coming and he lets go of me and he ducks back. Well, now I'm hanging from one arm sideways on this fucking ring, because normally I'd just get in the ring. But it would take me longer to do that. And I would have to turn my back on this guy again, and I'd be off balance, and he's not leaving. So I jumped down to the floor flat-footed, and it was just like a spot. As soon as I landed with my feet, he swung at me, but I was already coming downwards anyway, so I just let the flow go, and I bent over and ducked the swing and came up from the floor with a goddamn shot with the racket right across his forehead, and he took a flat back bump. I've never seen anything like it. It's like he was working with me. As soon as I cracked him, and it hurt my elbows, so I know I got him good, right? That's when I could always tell when I got somebody good, because it hurt my elbows. Whack! He fucking flies backwards. And he does a flat back bump, only he didn't know to tuck his chin, and the back of his head hits the goddamn fucking floor, right? And I think, well, that'll be, and he turns over and starts getting up. So that's when I started, and then I went over, I threw a few kicks, and that's when here comes the principal and tackled this fucking guy. And like David said in the email, the fucking guy's head hits the gym floor a second time and bounces, and it sounded like that, right? Boom, don't make an edit. That's just what I'm a sound effect. And boom. And then here comes the fucking cops, and they threw him out the back door. I heard later on that they didn't arrest him. They just threw him out of the building. They may have told the kids they put him in the squad car. Maybe he got in there later on because he couldn't walk. But the story that I was told by either the principal or one of the cops later was that the guy was just wandering around. I guess the gym was out back of the parking lot or the track or the football field, whatever. He was just wandering around mumbling to himself in the back. They didn't know who he was. They said, as long as he doesn't come back in and try to cause any trouble, fuck him. That was Texas for you back then. But the big question mark in the story, did I really have a gold and diamond ring in the shape of the state of Texas?
Yeah.
No, it was my watch. I had just bought a brand new gimmick gold watch because, I was supposed to be the rich kid, right? Well, I always got the gimmick gold at either truck stops or Walmart, but a lot of times I would wear that. That's before I quit wearing that shit all the time because I was just losing it in situations like this. And as I recall, that's when I remember I've told the story. I got like a cheap plastic black banded watch, a small thing that nobody could really see for pay-per-view where I would and TV where I'd keep time. You couldn't really tell I was wearing one, but I quit the gimmick jewelry because it was just one time I was with Dream Machine in the car on the way from Louisville to fucking through Paducah, Kentucky to Memphis, I think, that way, out the Western Kentucky Parkway. And we stopped at a truck stop at like 3:00 in the morning, and I saw this watch that looked like it should sell for $25,000. I'm like, I got to wear this on Memphis TV tomorrow. He said, you ought to buy you that, corny. They didn't call me corny back then. What the fuck? But anyway, and I'm going to do it. It's like $8, right? This was a big fucking deal in 1982, $8. I bought it. I put it on. I was like, this is fucking great. And it had that fucking, the plastic, the little plastic like stickum sheet over the top of something you buy that protects the face, and you peel it off, right? I peeled the fucking stickum off, and the whole face of the watch came off with the stickum. And all I had was the goddamn works. And this, I'm like, motherfucker. This is 10 miles down the road, the wrong way. Anyway, but yes, that was a story of Texas. And that was just one of the spot shows. So you always got your money's worth.
Were you always mad or annoyed, or were you always thinking, or did you ever think, well, you know, this just means I'm doing my job well, the fact that this guy wanted to get me?
Oh, no, I got mad every single time. You have to. Because if you're sitting there like, well, fuck, I'm doing a good job. Meanwhile, you're getting the shit kicked out of you. You know, I got mad and fucking fought back and then calmed down later on. At least that was my coping mechanism, to have people physically attacking me 3 or 4 times a week for a multiple year period. But I don't know, some people, your mileage may vary on that one. I don't know. But no, I can't. And for the first couple months in Louisiana, I was scared shitless, really. And by March, I remember one night in Alexandria, Grizzly Smith is holding me back. I'm like, bring that motherfucker over here, after they've already got me off of him. I'll kill him, motherfucker. A guy fucking just decided he was going to fucking pop me in the side of the head, and thought I was going to look at him and not do anything about it. And I fucking Paul Bunyaned him with the racket straight down like a hatchet murder. Boom. And drove him to his knees with 2 or 3 shots. And then Grizzly grabs me. He's like, okay, we got the point. And he's dragging. I'm like, let me go. I'll kill him. I'll kill him 1,000,000 times.
How many watches did you go through?
Well, not many, because that's why I quit wearing it out after a while. You know, where I figure I won't look as, goddamn opulent and wealthy, but I'll save more of my shit. And then also, you wear that shit, it'll cut you or somebody else up too.
How long did you wear? I mean, not just watches.
And I've always been very financially, what's the word? Paniculous.
You wore rings also, didn't you?
Oh, only for a few publicity pictures and an early Memphis television and some Mid-South stuff. And then I said, okay, you know, because you couldn't wear them. Yeah, I was like, it was too much. It was too much. I was trying things. Hey, what could I say? Bowie was Ziggy Stardust at one point. Anyway, if you would like to see whether I can still start a riot in public doing a personal appearance, you will have about 3 chances this year, because there's 3 places I've agreed to be at, and I'm probably not taking any more because I got too much shit to do and I'm just sour on the world. But anyway, March 14th, I will be in Circleville, Ohio at the new Heritage Center there at the fairgrounds for World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling. And Bobby Fulton, as we mentioned last week on the program, it's a Midnight Express reunion with me, Bobby Eaton, and Dennis Condrey. A fan fest. All kinds of stars are going to be there all day. They're going to have matches, but don't blame me. But we're going to have a great time there in Circleville and open up the brand new building with the biggest wrestling crowd ever in Circleville, is what we are predicting, ladies and gentlemen. Going back to the days of Buddy Rogers, you can't beat the crowds of the 50s. Then March 26th through the 29th in LexCon this year, the Lexington Comic and Toy Convention at Lexington Center, Rupp Arena. And my friend Jared Greer and the folks at Inner Geek Comics, who do such a great job, we're going to, I think, have even more people. I think their record was either last year or the year before. They're going to do better than 40,000 folks this year. I can feel it in my bones. And so if you want to see me anywhere around the state of Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, whatever the case, those are the 2 chances to do it in March. And otherwise, this year in August, I'll be at the Gathering in Charlotte, because we're going to do that every year because it's summer vacation. And the folks at T-Mart did a great job last year, and we will be there with all kinds of reunions and stuff this year. And otherwise, I'll be in the house a lot. So don't miss me, those 3 places. Where are you going to be, Brian?
Nowhere involving wrestling, I'll tell you that much. You'll find me at the Met game. You'll find me doing some stuff with the kids. Probably going to some amusement parks.
You should advertise that. You should say, like, I'll be at the Met game. Come up and chat.
Nah, people bother me. People bother me. People don't know me bother me.
Do the Mets now draw, like, fucking indie crowds where you can just pick people out personally?
If it's a day game and it's like, if it's like a spring night game on a Tuesday, yeah, people will find you.
A spring night game on a Tuesday, you can find Brian Last, ladies and gentlemen, at every Mets game in the spring at night on a Tuesday.
That's right. Don't bother me unless you're bringing me a drink.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a sour attitude to have when I was going to tell you about the greatest thing. No, seriously, I was going to tell you about the greatest thing that now my favorite of all of our sponsors now has come out with something that you can not only use during the day, but you can use at night games. You can use during power failures. This is breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pubic service announcement. After more than 18 months of research and development, the Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the greatest ball trimmer ever produced by mankind. I'm going to listen to what this sounds like. You hear that? That is the hum of slickness and contentment, because we have talked about the Lawnmower 2.0 and how great it was. And it was my greatest personal grooming tool ever, and it's been a revolution. It's been a life-changing thing. Guess what is in my hand right now? The Lawnmower 3.0.
Now that's crazy, because 2.0, the Lawnmower 2.0, let me use its Christian name. It's perfect. I've talked about it. I use it on my face. It is just the greatest razor, buzzer, whatever you want to call it, I've ever had. It is perfect. I don't know how they could improve upon that.
And we should clarify also, let's use its Christian name, but we should clarify also, you got two, one for your face and one for your asshole, because you don't want to mix the perineum cells with your fucking nostrils, but still, nevertheless, you can use it everywhere. But no, I'm telling you what they have done here, this is fucking genius, Brian. Not only is it an even more improved head trimmer area, cutting area, so we've already talked about it's impossible to nick yourself, cut yourself, you can't draw blood, whatever, but this is improved, but also it has a little attachment that you can actually, now you can do your beard, even your hair with this thing, because it's adjustable links. It's got the little plastic attachment. Plus, here's the goddamn deal, folks. Guess what it's got right underneath the little cutting tool up at the top? Right up above the power button, and now, by the way, there's a base that you can plug in the wall, and you can set this thing in the base, and you can charge it, and it charges the last for up to an hour and a half. You could shave a gorilla in an hour and a half with this thing. But guess what it has underneath the cutting tool, up above the little power button?
I don't know.
An LED light.
Oh, get out of here. Wow.
Yes, it illuminates no matter where you point this thing. The light illuminates in pitch blackness wherever you are trying to groom. So you can actually, in a power failure, you can shave your balls. When you can't do anything else in the middle of the night in a power failure, shave your balls, your ass, your perineum, your petruvium, your petroleum, your underarms, your chest, your back, your sideburns, your eyebrows.
You trying to sell this to people in the wrestling business?
Yes. I don't know if Dutch Mantel would have ever been a star if this had been available in the early 70s. But if you use the Lawnmower 2.0, this is so much better and more improved. It's got a light. It's easier to charge. They've upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And I mentioned the charging stand, but anyway, it's goddamn incredible. It is revolutionary. And the Cult of Cornette members can get 20% off and free shipping still on this, the Lawnmower 3.0, that's now on sale by using the code JCE at manscaped.com. Manscaped.com, code JCE, 20% off and free shipping to get this. I mean, you can shave your kids with this. and then maybe wipe it off before you go back to your ass. But nevertheless, it's
what the. We've done all these spots from Manscaped. You've never brought up shaving your ass. It's all you've talked about so far.
Well, I'm just telling you, because it's so easy. You don't even have to look where you're going. You can't hurt yourself with this thing. It's soft enough for a baby. You know, you can shave a baby's ass with this thing. You can't hurt yourself. You can light up where you're going. You don't even need to look, though, because you can't hurt yourself anyway, and the hair just falls off. So if you're like me and you're advanced enough in age and have enough injuries to where you can't see all the different parts of your body, you can use this willy-nilly without fear of fucking yourself up.
That's good that you can shave a baby's ass, because I know there are all those hairy-ass babies out there.
Well,
having problems.
They look hairy. They're all
out of shave.
For heaven's sake. Anyway, manscaped.com, folks. Your balls will thank you for it. Speaking of thanking people, we should now stand up and applaud, just real briefly, the House Democrats for bringing to light, even more light, just what a piece of shit our president is. Of course, we also at the same time realize that the Republicans are doing absolutely nothing about it and I'm not even learning anything I didn't know because I've been following this, but they're giving the case for everything this fucking asshole did, when he did it and who he did it with. And they've got witnesses and they've got documents, and the ones they're allowed to get, the ones he hadn't hidden, or the ones he hadn't kept from him because he knows he's guilty of everything that we could possibly think of that a human being could do. He's guilty of it. But Brian, what does it feel like, do you think, now for the average person to have to realize, yes, the president of the United States is everything that we thought he was. He's a fucking, the people that don't watch the news every day and didn't know all this stuff beforehand, they're now realizing, yes, he was a crook. He did all these things that everybody said he did. And the Republicans still won't do anything about it because of one of two reasons. Either they are so scared because they've ridden this horse so long. They have, this jackass, I should say, they have put up for him and put up with him and taken up for him and made excuses for him and act like that he was in any way normal or a human being worthy of our anything but contempt. They've done it so long that now if they come out and actually tell the truth, because they all know they have to deal with him, all the politicians, all the people in Washington, they, I'm sure, are well aware of what they've got. But they can't come out and tell the truth because of one of two things. Either they're afraid people are going to say, well, now you realize he's a fucking asshole and a crook and a liar and a con man and a piece of shit and he doesn't know anything. Suddenly, what took you so fucking long? Are you a fucking idiot? Or they're worried that they're going to get voted out, or they're worried they're going to get voted out by the people who, for whatever genetic defect they have in their brain stem or chemical imbalance that possesses them, the people that still think that this guy should be the president of the United States or the leader of the free world or whatever the fuck, have his finger on the button, the Republican politicians are afraid that those people are going to vote them out. Let's lose the votes of the mentally ill. Boy, that's horrible. That's the only way we're going to stay in office. Is to make sure that the mentally ill people who haven't seen from the start what this fucking piece of pig shit was, everything he was about, everything he does, everything he says, every time he opens his mouth, it's obvious to the normal folks. So they are guarding the Republican senators by, what is it, a 53 to 47 majority or whatever. Yeah. They are guarding the votes of the mentally ill that they still think they're going to get, and they don't want normal folks to come out and say, you were either bullshitting all along and you knew what he was and you wouldn't say it, or you just figured it out, which means you're an even bigger idiot and you shouldn't be in public office. So whether they're not going to convict him because all the Republicans, as for the reasons that I mentioned, are going to go down with this fucking guy's ship. This pig fucking piece of shit that's an embarrassment to every American. So, since he's not going to get impeached and removed from office, he's been impeached. That'll never go away. a very odd occurrence, unique occurrence in American history, one of only 3 that was so fucking crooked and scummy, although in Clinton's case, that was a blowjob. So that was partisan bullshit also. So really, it was down to Nixon and fucking Jackson and Nixon. The Republicans actually told the truth back then, and they wouldn't even stick up for him. So he didn't actually get impeached. He was just headed in that direction. So basically, Donald Trump, as we knew from the start, is the only president of the United States in the last 160 years that has actually been so egregiously incompetent, crooked, abusive, and overall unfit for office that half the goddamn politicians in the government have had to say something about it. And he ain't going to get convicted because of the Republicans, but more people now are watching the news. More people now are seeing the testimonies. More people now are finding out what everybody else that's been paying attention already knew. I would like to suggest that not only do we vote Donald Trump out of office in November, but that we vote every single Republican member of Congress out of office, because they're obviously treasonous, gutless, spineless, cowardly pieces of shit that are allowing our lives and liberties and freedoms to be impinged on and infringed on and threatened every second of the day that they allow an incompetent, crooked lunatic to play president just because their party won somehow, because the rubes and the hillbillies got scared. I vote they should be the ones to be brought up and impeached on charges of treason for turning their backs on an obvious public menace like a lunatic, deranged idiot in charge of the fucking federal government, just because they don't get upset because their party won. And they can stack up the court with all the fucking judges that will infringe on all of our rights to have children or do anything else for the next fucking 50 years with their backwards caveman bullshit. So anyway.
The biggest problem is not Trump, it's Mitch McConnell.
Well, yes, my Kentucky turtle-faced bitch himself, who's an evil human being and I wish that he would live long enough that they would discover a way to revive the dead so that when he dies, they could bring him back and we could kill him again. Because an evil son of a bitch like that he deserves more than one death. He deserves both the gas chamber and the electric chair if you can't decide between the two. Because he's the one that's keeping this shit operating. Trump obviously can't operate anything. But as soon as the hillbillies elected Trump so he'd take care of their guns, then that gave Mitch McConnell power to do whatever the fuck backwards-ass bullshit in his mind he thinks is proper that he wanted to do with the United States of America. And that's what he's done. And that's what he's protecting. They don't want witnesses. They don't want actual proof. They don't want actual testimony or documents. They go, oh, no, he's fine. It's okay. You see a pile of shit. We see a cheeseburger.
Is there any chance that he won't be reelected? Is there any chance that Kentucky will actually not elect him again?
Well, he's supposedly even unpopular according to the polls even here. And he's supposedly one of the most unpopular senators or whatever the fuck, but he still keeps getting elected because, unfortunately, we have here in Kentucky, Louisville and Lexington, and the rest of the state is fucking Hooterville. And they buy this bullshit, this conservative Republican bullshit, hook, line, and sand. They think the coal's coming back. So, no, you can't get any help from Kentucky until this fucking guy rots of old age. It's almost as bad as Alabama. At least they haven't found Mitch fondling up any little boys or girls in the goddamn mall bathroom. That's probably because his fucking chin's not the only thing that sags on him. But nevertheless, fuck you, Mitch, piece of shit. Embarrassing Kentucky. I wish somebody'd take a fucking lawnmower 3.0 to Mitch and just shave him down. It probably shouldn't take long because he doesn't have any hair on his balls. Anyway, let's bring the fucking mood up a little bit. I got another letter. Do you remember the person that pitched the idea that maybe you could get a babyface wrestler over by stranding him on Mars.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was a while ago.
that was a while back. Well, actually, I'd referred to it a few times, but I mistakenly referred to the guy that had the idea, because as I see now from this email, it was a young lady. Because Stephanie writes, "Dear Mr. Cornette, you may remember me. I'm the girl who pitched you the idea of having a wrestler stranded on Mars in order to get him or her over." And she's got another idea. She says, "I heard that on a recent episode of The Drive-Thru, you've said that while some people may have liked Joey Ryan's dick flips, everyone's seen it by now and is bored of it. I had a booking suggestion on how to solve this problem, which could be done on the Indies or on Impact every week." And really, isn't that the same thing, ladies and gentlemen? That's my editorial comment. But done on the Indies or on Impact every week, and was curious to hear your thoughts. The storyline starts with Joey Ryan being patted down by the referee before a match. The referee grabs his crotch, reaches in his trunks, and shockingly pulls out a dildo. It's revealed that Joey never had a magical penis all along. He had a dildo in his pants the whole time that he was using as a foreign object / guard. His opponent then uses this new knowledge and the lack of Joey's dildo to win the match. Throughout the next several shows, Joey continues losing due to opponents utilizing his new lack of dildo to gain an advantage. The constant losses send Joey into a depressive funk, and he considers retirement. But over time, he grows to become more confident in his own penis and begins to win matches more often. The angle culminates in a match where he performs the dickplex with his own penis and wins. He realizes his penis power wasn't in any old dildo, but inside of him and his penis all along, and he ushers in a new era of his career. This angle would freshen up his penis act and give him an underdog story that would let people rally behind him. I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether this would work. Also, fuck Joey Janela. Sincerely, Stephanie." So even people who come up with ideas like this do not like jelly Nutella. Stephanie, I gotta be honest with you. I wasn't really a big fan of the Mars storyline with stranding the guy on Mars and of course the inherent disadvantages that would bring. And I'm not really a fan of this idea of it being revealed that Dick Boy's power came from a magic dildo rather than his own little teeny weeny peeny. However, I think you have inadvertently, as some great artists sometimes do, struck a genius idea without even realizing it. Because, Brian, imagine this. Picture me, just follow me on this for a second. Picture this. What if we combine these two angles? And Joey Ryan and his magic penis were the one that we stranded on Mars. Now we've got box office. We could actually, this could be the biggest fundraiser in wrestling, because we could ask people to send in whatever you can. $1, $2, $5. I know some would give $1,000 to basically kickstart the space program to send Joey Ryan and his little teeny weeny peeny to fucking Mars and strand him there. And then we could let Stephanie, the architect of this brilliant angle, figure out a way to get him back. What do you think?
If I could do some fantasy booking, I think everything continues the way it is. And it's kind of like on Dallas when all of a sudden Bobby Ewing wasn't dead. He was in the shower and it was all a dream. We all wake up and this was all just a fucking nightmare. None of this stupidity, which, in case you haven't realized, draws less and less. None of this stupidity still was taking place. That's my dream.
That may be the best angle yet. Are you doing any shows on Mars this week?
None on Mars. Perhaps Jupiter, Venus, and Neptune. You'll have to find out on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, on Twitter at Superpodcast, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Few notes. Each and every week we review Mid-South Wrestling and Mid-Atlantic Wrestling on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, giving you a chance to go through each episode in order, find out what was happening, hear some audio, and get an idea of what was happening in the entire world of wrestling at that period of time. Check them out. The Mid-South Wrestling Television Review with myself and Mike Mills at midsouthpod.com are available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. And also the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast with Mike Sempervive and Roman Gomez, available at midatlanticpod.com. Once again, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership! Thank you, big boy. Coming up in the next few days, it should be released, we have a special episode, a tribute to Pampero Firpo, who just recently passed away. We're going to examine his entire career. We talked to Jeff Walton about Pampero Firpo in Los Angeles. Fumi Saito about the 4 tours of Japan Pampero Firpo made. Dave Brzezinski, or Dave Drayson. He has many different names. Supermouth we talked to about Detroit. We talked to Bill Atkinson about 50th State Wrestling, plus John Arezzi on New York. We have Flying Fred Curry on the show, and an extended talk with Pampero Firpo's daughter Mary about the man and the wrestler. This is some really great stuff. We also have some exclusive, hasn't been heard, I don't think, since it originally aired, audio. We have Pampero Firpo in Hawaii in 1968, including the opening of the show, which Lanny Poffo has cited as the specific clip that influenced Randy Savage to adopt "Ooh Yeah" as his expression, as well as 1972 audio of Pampero Firpo and the Grand Wizard, the debut promo in New York, as well as his first match on Championship Wrestling TV with a rookie Vince McMahon as commentator. Check this out, 605pod.com, available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. And episode 102 is also in production. It should be out probably within a week and a half or so, but stay tuned for more information. The Mothership!
Where do you get all those crazy toys? You find this audio and all these long archived and forgotten and buried clips and things. You're a Sherlock Holmes of wrestling.
Well, you know, I have like a legitimate fear of history being lost. And with wrestling, it's actually more of a reality than it is really anything else. I always say this: music, politics, sports, entertainment, whatever it is, there's a documented history. There are always stories that are whispered and aren't in books, but for the most part, we know what went on. There are documents, there are books, there are stories, there are people to tell their stories. In wrestling, we don't have that. An entire generation of wrestlers died not breaking kayfabe, at least not publicly. There weren't books, there weren't newsletters, there weren't extensive interviews. There was footage that was erased, taped over, burned, you know, just thrown in trash bins, as some of us may know.
Yes.
And I just think, you know, especially when covering wrestling history, there's a true responsibility to try to get it right, try to tell the story accurately and honestly. And I search for whatever information I can. I do legitimate research when I'm putting together these things, and you never know what you're going to bump into. But I think it's important with wrestling history, especially, to try to document as much of this as possible.
Well, we're going to document this past Wednesday night's television programs in a few minutes. But first, we are going to go to the phones for a call for Knoxville, Tennessee, with one of my favorite people in the world, and talk to Tom Prichard about training and all kinds of stuff. Can you set up the electronics to put Tom on the line?
I could set it up, and Dr. Tom Prichard should be available right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now on the Jim Cornette Experience, what an experience it's going to be, ladies and gentlemen. There are those people in the world that when I get together with them, the energy, the positive energy that erupts can just bring the heavens down. And this guy is one of them. Boy, as soon as me and him get together instantly, well, here's another thing about this fucking guy. And we could just go on like that all night long. But we're going to be positive here on the program. He is not only we forget to mention that he was a great professional wrestler and star of numerous territories and the WWF and Smoky Mountain Wrestling in his day, because he has established himself over the last number of years as one of the preeminent trainers in professional wrestling. Everybody from Vince McMahon and The Rock to who's next? We don't know. We're going to ask him. We're going to find out. Dr. Tom Prichard from beautiful downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. How are you, Doc?
Jim, I'm always looking forward to a positive experience when I talk to you. So, yeah, we're going to make it a good one. We're going to make it a positive experience. I'm doing tremendous right now in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. It's a beautiful day. Skies are overcast, and if it's a perfect day to go swimming, I don't know. But anyway, perfect day to do something other than be outside. And if you have an indoor swimming pool, I suggest it right now.
You have been run out of your facility. The Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy, JPWA, Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy has construction going on today. Things are, the walls are going up. You're growing by leaps and bounds, and you've been run out to the sanctitude and sanctimoniousness of your automobile so we can get some quiet to do this program. But you nicknamed, I think in Florida, one of those wrestle reunion things. You named me and Jimmy Hart the Feather and the Spike, because like Jimmy's always, oh baby, I love you, baby. Oh poo poo, how you poo poo, and I'm always like, this fucking guy, goddamn, what the fuck is going on here? You're like, he's the feather and you're the spike.
Right.
If that's the case, I think you're a fist in a velvet glove. You deliver a stern and hard message, but sometimes you can coat it in a velvet glove so that it goes down easier for your wrestling school students.
Well, there is that occasion when I do have to soften the blow just a little bit, but I have been known at times to throw a few goddams out there too, and it gets a little easier as time goes on. But then all of a sudden, I'll stub my toe on somebody and say, "Man, this guy has potential. He has talent. Why isn't he getting it?" And then I have to stop, sit back, and realize that nobody just comes in into this business anymore. Nobody just comes to training anymore. From the perspective that I had when I started. So that's where I have to kind of stop and regroup and align myself with the fact that it ain't the same business that I grew up in. It ain't the same business you grew up in. It's a totally different world and a totally different way to look at it. But the one thing that never changes is the basics and fundamentals of what professional wrestling is. So once we get past that, and once I get past telling them just because Rob Van Dam did it doesn't mean you can or should do it. And I explained to them, you have to have a solid foundation to work from before you can start doing the other stuff. And some get it and some don't.
Everybody's got to realize there is a reason why some people are called an exception to the rule. Because if everyone was an exception to the rule, they wouldn't be exceptional, and there would really be no rule. Just because.
And if you have no rules, then you have rulers, and that doesn't work either. So there you go.
Well, there you go. You touched on something we're talking about, just training in general, but you said when you have to throw a few goddams in there, a part of the thing that has changed about. Some people are now upset about being yelled at in wrestling training, and which, is like in the previous era when it was the pretense that wrestling was a sport. A lot of these guys came from football backgrounds, or at least some high school level athletics or college, or even the pros, et cetera, or at the very least, we're used to being yelled at in an environment where they were being taught, trained, coached, because it was a business where you were getting kicked in the face. It wasn't an accounting firm that you were applying to, for a job at. It doesn't mean because Bear Bryant yelled at all those players when he coached Alabama that he hated personally every single one of them. But in the moment, you are imparting crucial information in a very short period of time. And sometimes it's, go to the ring, motherfucker. And,
right.
But it's like I'm thinking that now the change has turned to where a lot of people get in the business thinking that this is going to be more of an acting class or a theater project, and we have roles to play and etc. And everyone should be reading the lines. And it's the atmosphere has changed, but at the root of it, you're still getting coached in what purports to be a professional sport.
Right. And my attitude and my perception and take on the whole thing is this. It's still professional wrestling. We have a coach here, a basketball coach here, Rick Barnes, who talked about he doesn't cuss and yell at his players. Okay, and he's doing pretty good with the guys. But at the same time, I think frustration will reign in anybody who you're trying to show or demonstrate or communicate what you want them to do. And professional wrestling, as you well know, it is athletic, and it's impromptu, improv, and a lot of elements combined that not everyone sees firsthand when they watch wrestling on TV these days. And it is a different product than I was introduced to, but at the same time, you still have the elements of a lockup. You still have to grab a hold. You still have to go through a match. You still have to understand what the mechanics are and how it works. And it's not easy. Therefore, some people react great to a pat on the back. Some people react great to a kick in the ass. And there's not too much distance between that. So you have to figure out, who do you need to do this to and who do you need to do that to? And that can be a challenge figuring it out. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when I see guys eventually getting it because they don't want to hear, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" anymore, then that's gratifying. Because sometimes that's going to happen. And if you have passion for this, you're not going to be any good at it. I don't believe, and I don't think you're going to like it. You have to love this. You have to understand it's not as pristine and clean and clinical as some people may think. These days, you do have a clean, pristine place to go and learn and train and everything, and that's good and that's great. But at the same time, I think it really helps if you get down to the bottom of it and the nitty gritty. There's going to be a little dirt. There's going to be a little salt. There's going to be some seasoning you have to put on, and it's not always going to be pretty. You're going to get mat burns. You're going to hurt yourself. Hopefully you don't hurt yourself. But the thing is, well,
that goes back to what you were talking about, the basics. It's not that we're trying to say, okay, don't do the moonsault and don't do all these moves you see on television. We're trying to say, you don't just take 5 guys off a playground that are playing basketball and say, okay, here, we've got a game set up for you with the Celtics. Just go out and
right.
Then they're going to run as fast as they can and shoot the ball every time they get their hands on it, but they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. The basics of wrestling are meant to protect yourself and your opponent. But between you and me, we have, over the last however many decades, discovered, booked, broken in, helped train, given exposure to a large percentage of the people that have been big-time stars in the major companies over the last 20 years. You can tell when a guy can kind of sort of is getting it, but the point is, it's not like a drill sergeant. Like there's been the accusations made that some programs were too physically demanding. No, at the same point, if you don't want to get cussed out, don't get trained by Rip Rogers, but he's one of the best in the world.
Right.
But the point is, the level of training that you get at the start helps you when then you go out and invent all that shit. And if you don't have a level of training to master the basics of how to protect yourself and other people, then you're never going to get the job on a mainstream level in a big paying position to go, except if a billionaire likes your high school friends or whatever. You're not going to get the chance, because that's what we look for. We look for, is this guy able to execute the basics and do things in a proper way to protect himself and his opponents? And then he can go out and do all the crazy shit. And you don't yell at people in training programs as much as you yell at them when it comes game time. I never yell at anybody me of all people, in a training session or in a seminar, unless they willy-nilly pick somebody up and drop them on their fucking head and almost break their neck. I yell at them on TV because if TV is game time, the OVW television or the Smoky Mountain TV, there's plenty of yelling going on there because that's the fucking game. That's the NCAA finals. That's where the coach is fucking yelling. But otherwise, you try to help guys get to the point where they don't have to get yelled at when game time comes.
Right, and I think at this level of being basic and fundamentally sound, if you can't take a little constructive criticism, correction isn't criticism, and some people say it in Rip Rogers' way, which I've seen him do it. But at the same time, once you go through that episode, 5 minutes later, he's explaining why he just went through his episode of talking to you that way. So, and that's what we do. And that's a lot what I do here is I may have a moment of, no, we just went over it. Why'd you do it like that? And then all of a sudden I'll explain, listen, let me show you one more time, and we get it done. And the other thing about training is I do believe, and I believe this business should be fun. It should be enjoyable, but it's also hard work, and you have to enjoy the hard work. I don't do the duck walks, and I don't do the squats and the push-ups, but we do the wrestling drills, and we do them over and over and over, repetition. And once again, we've said it many, many times before. It's like stand-up comedy in the sense that you can tell jokes all day long in front of an empty room, but you don't know if they work until you go out and actually try it. Same thing with this. You can try and do everything you can in practice, but the real way to do it is to go out and apply what you've learned in front of an audience, in front of a crowd, get a reaction.
Yeah. Well, and that's why OVW was a great training ground, because it was set up like a territory and guys could go out and get exposure in front of crowds of different sizes. And that's why, you guys, now that you're getting established there, it hadn't been long since you opened up, and already you've gotten some of your initial class of guys have already done some, as they say, guest appearances on Raw and a few different things. But down in South in general, there's a lot of live events that are running. There's a lot of local promoters. So guys in that area can get the chance to go out and do that rather than if you live in Montana. But the thing about your program also is not only do you have an ongoing program where you can, teach guys from the ground up, if not, as a friend of ours used to say, not if they're 8 to 80 blind, crippled, or crazy. If they can't walk, we'll drag them. But if they have the aptitude and are in the legitimate parameters of what it takes to go through the program, you can train them from the ground up. Or you've also been talking about seminars where guys that are already established pros can come in for a weekend or whatever to work with you one-on-one, because it's like, honestly, if you want to play guitar, you get a chance to work with fucking Keith Richards, one-on-one every once in a while. That can only up your game. And I like what you're doing, because we all know the NXT program and the Performance Center and everything is, gigantic now. And those guys are literally being polished like a factory. We see the NXT program. But I fear for the people who get into wrestling as their first taste of it, going to the NXT program and think, okay, because it is so fucking clean and so nice and you are so taken care of. The heart of wrestling is still, like you said, from the ground up. And I think this is it's a boutique. What you've got's a boutique program right now, Doc. Don't get too big. Don't become like McDonald's and have 18 ratings and everything.
No, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near McDonald's. But you're right. It is pretty much a specialized service, and we do tell guys about the ins and outs of professional wrestling, which again goes back to everybody wants to be a star. A lot of people want to just get in it to be famous. And once they get here, I explain to them, I understand that, and I'm not against that either. I would love everyone to go out and be a big star, make a lot of money, and be famous. But in order to do that, you have to do this, and you have to learn this first. Otherwise, you'll get in the ring, and I had this happen actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with a kid that, and the way it happens, here's a story. We're sitting around after we had just got done in the ring. I got a text from a promoter here in Tennessee who said, hey, it's Tuesday night. Can you send me a match Saturday? and the town was 2.5 hours away. The kid that had been coming to train with us, great athlete, good kid, but never had the opportunity to watch wrestling in his life, was sitting here, and I told him, you need to make an effort. If you really want to do this, you need to show me, and you show everybody in class that you really want to do this. You can't just come once in a while. You have to come every night. He was here, and I said, I'm going to send you to the show with this other guy. So he got to the show. They changed the match on him. Went in the ring. The guy called 10 punches in the corner. He didn't do that because we don't, strange as it may sound, we don't have that on our curriculum yet. But he did it. The guy told him, get on the corner and do it. He did it to the best of his ability, but that was a learning process. And he realized, oh my God, I do need to come. I do need to learn this. And he's been coming for the last, since then, he's been coming for the last, all this year. He's been putting forth the effort. And that's really the way it works. If you want this, you're not going to start out in Madison Square Garden. You're going to start out in some of these small towns and learn and get a feel for it and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. And we tell people all the time, it's okay. No, I have yet to see a perfect match all the way through, but that's the way this works. And we give everybody an opportunity to find out. And along the way, we, of course, give constructive criticism and correction. So it is a long process. It's a pretty cool process here because we do have our guys working and having the opportunity to be in front of people, which is very, very fortunate for us.
Well, it's the same thing as a band rehearsing in the garage. Until you actually go out and play in front of some people, you have no conscious idea of how good you are. You sound great in the garage, right? When you're the only audience is the people in the band. But when you get out in front of people and they start throwing fruit at you, then you're like, well, fuck, I guess we're not, and that's the thing, unfortunately, that we've talked about, we've lost with the loss of the territories is the chance for guys like I mentioned, I think last week on a program, Bobby Fulton. When he was 19 years old, he was working the Memphis territory, and he was losing in the first match every night as the opening match babyface, but he was working in a 10,000 seat building every Monday, and most of it full, and a 6,000 seat building every Tuesday. And he was learning to work to the big buildings, and he was working with guys who had been in the business so much longer. And that's where the reactions come, your facial expressions and your body language comes from feeding off people as you are in front of them, and you learn how, rather than just making your own as seen on television. And so in a lot of cases now, guys are concentrating on doing the routine of moves that has been pre-planned by them, rather than reacting in the moment when something happens and people just blow and the guy just goes right on and at the same speed, same pace, same facial expression. Everybody's ducking with no surprise. It's not a surprise I missed him on my face. It's not a relief I was able to evade him on my face. They're just doing the stuff. And that the rest of all that makes it look right comes from doing it in front of people over and over.
Well, a huge void too today is an experienced veteran in there with someone with less experience, and guiding them along the way as well, and trying to help them and having that marriage, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 2 months. So that also is something that you're trying to convey and explain. And we do watch a lot of old video because the emotion, the feeling is pretty much out the window. And we actually just watched a match from Tampa, Bill Watts versus Jack Briscoe. And I know you have, but if you've never seen Bill Watts in his prime, as a big man, he could move, but he had everything he did in the ring meant something. Every move, every facial, every expression. And that's what makes the match mean something. It's not just the moves, it's the little things in between and how you do it.
Well, exactly. And so much of that was, like you said, the marriages of guys in the territories when they'd work, an angle and a program for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. That would mean that if you worked a guy in Louisiana for an 8-week program, that means, let's see, 8 times that it means you worked with him at least 50 times. Right. And if you were working with a veteran, you picked up something different every night as the finishes changed and what you were asked for, especially if you're a baby face working with a veteran heel, what he's calling every night's changing based on whatever the stipulation is and blah, blah, blah. And it was on the job training, but we saw a great example of it. And we'll talk about this later on the program. Thankfully, you won't have to be a part of this, Doc, when we talk about the Wednesday Night Wars, but Roderick Strong and Keith Lee. Roddy's been wrestling 15 years, and he's just so smooth and so good. And on the fly, when things go wrong, he can cover it up. And, at one point you saw him, they were trying to do a Tower of Doom thing off the ropes. It just wasn't panning out. You're just like seeing Roddy just say, fuck it, call it. We're not doing this right now. And he got down and, but that veteran keeps the baby face that's not as experienced in front of people. They can drill all day long in class, but the veteran keeps him focused, keeps him motivated, keeps him aggressive, keeps him whatever, tells him when to sell. And, it just that repetition with talented guys is hard to replicate in school. So you can only take them so far. But speaking of how far, that's the thing. You can teach a guy from scratch that has never been in a ring before. You can teach him how to put a headlock on without stepping on the other guy's feet and fucking flummoxing up and actually take him over without landing him on his head. If the guy's been wrestling a while, you can still polish them and get them ready to do live events. And if a guy's been a pro for however long, you've still been there longer, and you can show them some different things. Because the country music documentaries on PBS, I'll get on my soapbox here real quick, and then we'll get back to entertainment. Every single country music star of modern times credits something from the Carter family or from Bill Monroe or from the pioneers. Every baseball player says, well, you learned that grip from DiMaggio when he did the blah, blah, blah. Everybody in every sport, even Muhammad Ali, when he tried to fucking blame Sonny Liston taking a bump there in Maine on the fucking old Jack Johnson anchor punch, right, from the 19-teens. They studied the guys. That didn't mean they had to fight exactly like them or play exactly like them, but they used the shit that those guys that were great did in a modern context. And so many people are losing this shit because they think it's just all about performing moves for the crash test dummy type audience.
Well, you're right. But thank God there is YouTube, and even the WWE Network now has some of these old school matches on there. So there's no excuse, except that you just don't want to watch old stuff. But even you've got to know which old stuff to watch.
Well, it's not all great. We've never said that.
No, it's not all great. I agree 100%. I actually pulled up an old Houston wrestling program and watched the early part of it. I said, nope, we're not going to watch this because this isn't what I'm talking about. But then I got to Harley Race and Terry Funk, or I got to a Jose Lothario match and just explained, watch his fire, watch his manner, watch how he gives the other guy space when the babyface walks towards him, he knows he can't catch him. If he does, if the referee's not there, yes, you've got to continue, but you know how to pace it, you know how to stop. And it's all these mannerisms, all these, again, I go back to these elements that I don't know that everyone understands or knows what to teach at another school, but we're going to go over timing, footwork, pacing, giving distance where you need distance, close the gap when you need to close the gap. Don't lean on me when I'm taking you over. Just relax. The hardest part, I think, is to slow down and relax. Yeah. And once you got that, the rest pretty much will fall in place. So that's just some of the stuff that we go over here, and a lot of the guys are getting it. And as you said, they've been on Raw and SmackDown, and they work some of the shows around here, and they're getting some experience. And they're being proactive too. They're in the gym. They're making videos. They're promoting themselves, trying to be creative. They're not all going to be great, but that's the way you learn. You try it this way, and then you say, let me try it another way. And then you find your niche, and then you keep on changing, keep reinventing yourself. And so far, we've only been in business. We're going on our second year now, and I think we've done pretty good. We've got a pretty good track record, and Glenn comes by once in a while, checks on everybody, and it's a pretty good setup. So,
well, hey,
so far.
We've talked about how great it is, and it's in Knoxville, but we haven't narrowed it down. If people want more information on how to come to what will soon be the Harvard of pro wrestling, what's the website? What's all the information?
Well, the website is jpwrestlingacademy.com, and we have all our information on there for you can fill out an application, you can find out anything you want. If you have a question, you can email us. It's jpwrestlingacademy@gmail.com. I usually answer the questions about training, and anybody is welcome to come by, sit in and watch a class. We just had someone come by this week, actually. It was Tuesday night, come to think of it, and sat in, watched the class, said, I thank you very much. I'll be in touch. Didn't say I'm going to come train, but at least you can come in and see what we do. And that's the good thing about this.
You may have scared him off.
Well, you know what? I really don't change my training techniques for guests. And if they didn't like my style, that's okay too, because I really do. And I'm not, you're right. I don't badger, although I can. But I try not to make it a habit, especially when I'm seeing someone struggling. If you're honestly struggling and it's just something that you can't get, I get that. But if I see a guy who, isn't, in my opinion, isn't putting forth his best effort, that's when I really have to see if he wants this or not. And that's when I take that velvet glove off, and I have to find out what you're made of.
You slaps him.
I do. But no, I don't. I really don't. But
what's his name? Wait a minute. What's his name? The Lucha Brother guy takes his glove off, and that should be Dr. Tom's gimmick now.
Oh Jesus, no glove off. But if you can't take me telling you or correcting you, how are you going to take the real world? Because I don't want to just yell and scream and throw fits. That's not productive for me. It's not productive for anybody. But we do make an effort, because I know when people come to wrestling school, what do you expect? Well, you want some results after you're done. We do a 12-week course. After 12 weeks, are you ready to go to, again, are you ready to be headline in Madison Square Garden? You're not ready to set up the ring yet, but you can learn. And that's from the ground up, learning how to set up the ring and learning how to keep things clean, just learning habits when you start in wrestling, being on time, paying attention, learning the details. And what we do in the ring, actually, and you're well aware of this too, is a minuscule part of what this business really is about. And I talk about that as well when we come to class, because if anybody's made mistakes in this business, I certainly have. But I've learned from my mistakes. I just know I'm cut from this cloth, and this is how I am. I know now that training is it's an acquired taste. Not everybody can train people. Not everybody wants to train people. And sometimes you get into it and you go, "Oh my God, what are we doing? Why?" and I've done that a couple times, saying, "What in the living hell?" And then again, I go back to the satisfaction part, and the gratifying part is when you take someone who knows absolutely nothing, and you see a light bulb go off when they can do at least two moves that they had no clue how to do, and it was totally screwed up before, but they do two moves the way you wanted them to do it. And that, for me, again, I'll give them credit for that. I know they've got a long way to go, but that's where I see, okay, now it's paying off. So when here at JPWA, we want to pay off. We want to help people get booked. We want to help people get into wrestling if that's what they want to do. It's a hard gig, but at the same time, it was. I think, again, back when I broke in, back when you broke in, you had to know somebody who knew somebody, or you had to finagle your way in. You had to find a way in. There wasn't a wrestling school on every corner. We talk about Glenn, the Knox County mayor, Glenn Jacobs. Kane went to Florida to train with the great Malenko and lived in his house, and he got a job, and because he really wanted it. And he trained.
He went to Puerto Rico, and he really had to want to live down there. And then we got Dutch said he's about to go crazy. He has to come back to the States.
Right.
And,
I mean, that's
he followed it. He followed it.
Perfect example. Yes, of following his dream. And that's, if you really want to do this. And we've had a couple of people this past year who are showing me they really want to do this and follow their dream and pursue it. And we're helping as much as we can. We'll do everything we can. So, I know what it's like to want to do this. I know what it's like for people to tell you can't do it and you'll never do it. I understand that. I was told my whole life, but I also understand what it takes to make that initial break in. And because I understand that when people come to me and I know they're nervous, and I'm not going to yell and scream, I'm going to try and make them feel at home. And we're trying to make them feel that this should be fun. It is not easy. It can be simple, but it's not easy. Simple part, fall down, fall on your back, kick your legs up, slap the mat. Simple, right? Well, no. If you've never done this, you need to tuck your chin. You need to hit the mat. You need to bend your knees. There's little things that people don't think about. How do you do an arm drag? How do you grab a headlock and take somebody over without killing him or yourself? Little things that we talk about and the details.
Basically, you teach people to not be a menace to themselves or the public when in the process of perpetrating professional wrestling.
Correct.
That's what you're doing.
This is correct. Correct.
Hey, and speaking of perpetrating professional wrestling, you are going to be at an event coming up on February the 7th down there in Knoxville. That's a kind of a benefit and a tribute to, like we did with Bobby Eaton in December, this time for Tracy Smothers, who everybody knows at this point now has been diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing some treatments. And there's going to be a few people on the show there, and you're going to be managing, I think, though, correct?
Well, this is correct. It's actually in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes out of Knoxville, with KFW, Ken Folk Wrestling. Tommy Henry promotes that down there at the, it's a recreation campground. It's a great building right off the Parkway in Pigeon Forge. And yes, it is February 7th, and I'm doing a podcast with Tracy before the show, too. I'm going to manage Devin Driscoll, Mick Drake. They're known as the Industry, along with Shane Andrews against Kenzie Page, Henry, King Shane, and Ricky Morton with Tracy in their corner. So I will be in the opposite corner of Tracy Smothers. And let me just say this. Tracy and I have a long history. I've known Tracy for a long time, over 30 years, as have you. And we all know Tracy. I remember watching him wrestle a bear backstage at the Birmingham Fairgrounds and taking the bear down. And I'm going, what in the hell is going on here? But that's Tracy.
He's wrestled 3 bears in his life, 3 different bears. As Tracy Smothers wrestled.
Yes. Well, I saw one personally backstage at the fairgrounds, and the bear was getting hot. Tracy was taken down on the concrete. But we've all known Tracy as the wild-eyed Southern boy. He's a guy who's loved the business his entire life too, and we Tracy and I have had our ups and downs and go-arounds and things like that, and so have Ricky Morton and I too. And Ricky's always said, you can't be in this business for over 30 years and I'll have a couple fuck yous go along the way. So I get that. And it hasn't been any serious fuck yous, but I remember a night coming back from a town somewhere in Smoky Mountain, and it was Brian Lee and me, and Tracy and I had gotten, I don't know even what it was about now, whatever it was.
But, the Battle Royal, something happened in the Battle Royal.
Well, it was something. something was said and something was done, and I knew I could be a jerk and I could be I could be that smart ass, and Tracy wasn't having any of it that night.
Well, now wait a minute. Here, the honest to God, the thing was back in those days. Again, that phrase. But the dressing rooms were separate, the heels and the baby faces. So people had been firing Tracy because Tracy can be wound up. If you get to him right, it can be fun to watch him get wound up. Somebody had wound Tracy up about something that you had no idea was going on about. I don't even remember what it was. And then the Battle Royal was like, oh, yeah? And then here we go.
Yeah. So I was actually in that Battle Royal. I told the guys, just let him get it out right now. Let's do it in the Battle Royal. They said, no. And they pulled him aside. I said, man, because I didn't want it to fester. I just wanted, if he's going to get me in the Battle Royal, let's do it here. Punch me in the face, whatever you want to do. But on the way home, Brian Lee and I saw Tracy riding with the rock and roll, and I said, pull him over, by God, pull him over. I may or may not have had one or two beers. Hell, I don't know. But I think we all did. And we got out, and Tracy and I had words, but not real words. I think we were just cutting a promo on each other. And all of a sudden, we commenced a fight and a rumbling and grappling in the gravel. And here's a true story. We didn't really... It was like two guys locking up, and when we did that, it was like, wait a minute, nobody wants to fight here. I sure as hell didn't want to fight him. I didn't want to fight Tracy. I don't think Tracy wanted to fight me. I think Tracy knew in the back of his mind that I really meant no disrespect or any harm to him at all. Look, Tracy, I know people like him throughout this business. We've all been there. I mean, and he was ready to go, but thank God he didn't really want to kill me. But in the process of this night, two girls stopped. This is along the freeway now, and two girls stopped.
Well, now wait a minute, Doc. You're being generous that this was the freeway. It was Eastern Kentucky in the 1 o'clock in the morning, so it was more like the side of the road rather than the freeway.
Well, it was the side of the road, but I guess it was the 4-lane road that we got off
Highway 23 or whatever.
Well, Highway Route 1463, 7.5. Anyway, but these girls actually slowed down and stopped to look at Tracy and me, commenced to doing whatever we were going to do, and Ricky had a few choice words for him, and they went on their way, and not 10 seconds or however many seconds went by later, here comes blue lights. And Tracy stops. He goes, hey, you got kids. I got kids. I don't want to go to jail tonight. Do you? I said, no, Tracy, I don't want to. So the cop comes over and says, what are y'all doing? And we said, oh, we just playing on the side of the road. We're working on some stuff. We're wrestling. He said, all right, well, you got 30 seconds to get out of my county. Okay. So we all got in our car. So yes, sir. And came home. So, I mean,
he believed that you guys just at 1 o'clock in the morning you decided to pull over and work out some spots on the side of the road in Pixley County, Kentucky.
Whether he believed it or not, he just said you got 30 seconds to get the hell out of it, because I don't think he wanted to go anywhere else either. But we left, and the next day everything was fine because, I apologized to Tracy. Said, look, man, whatever was said, and it was said out of just being an idiot and just being like whatever I was being that night, and I don't even recall. But anyway, so I know about Tracy's wild-eyed streak. But I'll tell you one thing: on February 7th, I ain't gonna give him no quarter. I ain't gonna give him much, Jim. I'll tell you right now. I might just go over there and pop him in the face. No, I sure as I won't do that, because I know I don't care. I don't care how sick he is. I don't care how whatever condition he is. I don't think Tracy'd back down from anybody. So
no, and he's got that stick too. He's got
that stick. Yes, he does. He sure does. And
I want you to hold up, though, for the heavily bodies, because those thugs were probably, the thugs, Tracy and Tony. T is for terrible, yes. H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail, because a thug can't spell.
Can't spell. That's true. That is true. But it's going to be a fun night either way. It'll be good for Tracy, and all the proceeds, all the tickets go to help him out for his treatment. So, yeah, it's in Sevierville. No, pardon me, Pigeon Forge. If you go to KFW Wrestling on Facebook, they'll have all the information. There's more matches. A lot of guys coming in for this event too, just to help out and be a part of it. It's kind of cool.
And they can also go to Jacob's Prichard or Wrestling Academy. What was the website again?
I'm sorry, jpwrestlingacademy.com. We couldn't do the whole thing, I guess.
Wrestling, well, it would get unwieldy. jpwrestlingacademy.com for more information on the school. And we'll let you go so that Brian and I can turn our attention to the Wednesday Night Wars where one of the show dunked and the other one drowned.
Oh, I missed that. Yes. Very good. I thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's great. I always get talking to you. I got to talk to Brian on the Ron Fuller podcast, the Studcast. But it's always a pleasure. And man, I'm looking forward to having a great 2020. And anybody who wants to check out the JPWA, just come on. Just watch class, see if it's for you. Come on in. We're located at the D1 in the D1 complex in Hardin Valley. Not hard to find.
I know it's huge. That's where the Bob Eaton event was, and It's a huge building right there. You can't miss it. There's no way you could be blind if you could miss this giant building. Anyway,
right.
I love you, Doc. I will talk to you soon. Good luck on February 7th. Watch the stick, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Well, boy, Brian, you did a lot of work there on that interview.
What do you want me to do? Ask him how many flips and dance routines he's going to teach me at his school?
Well, no, I realized you didn't have anything to add, so you usually don't. But nevertheless,
come on.
I had to get that in. Well, speaking of adding things, you shamed me. I watched both shows this week, but also some of the Twitter folks shamed me that we've been letting in the euphoria of talking about the fucking train wreckedness of AEW, that we have slacked off on NXT, and some of the folks on Twitter said, we love the NXT. We love you to talk about the NXT. You're not talking about the NXT. So I watched the NXT first, as a matter of fact, last night.
I wish I had done that.
Well, it does leave you wanting a little bit to watch a little bit more wrestling, where remember, usually when I've finished with AEW, I'm like, oh, fuck, now I got to watch NXT too. But, see if I came up with something that I think there may be something at the root of this somewhere. NXT is a show where you admire the athletes. AEW is one where you think you could be one of the athletes. Does that make any sense?
Well, considering a few of the people on the roster, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, but I think NXT is the show that you would watch like we used to if, wow, those professional wrestlers, those guys are tough, and we couldn't do any of that shit. Whereas now AEW has become the show where you think, yeah, I could do that because they're letting everybody else do it, where NXT is a show where, these guys are obviously not only in shape, highly trained, they're hitting hard. And I'm just, what am I not seeing? This is the cutting edge wrestling show. Their editing and their production, their music, the pace, the energy, the roster, the young guys, the up-tempo style. They do the modern style of, too much, but they do it well. Why is everybody not going, this is the fucking AEW is supposed to be the cutting edge, different wrestling show? What am I not picking up on here?
It's marketing, it's promotion, it's hype.
But who's better at marketing and promotion than the WWF?
It's a different thing altogether, because AEW and the wrestlers there position themselves as kind of being the rebels. I mean, even though it's rather silly that they position themselves like that, but that's the way they presented themselves. We are the new young thing, even though in a lot of cases you'll see very similar type wrestling.
There's nobody on the NXT roster that's as old as the Young Bucks.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, practically not.
Ciampa, I would say, is older than them, probably.
Well, it might be close. Look that up while I'm droning on here for a second. The point is, it seems to me NXT as a television program, whether it's the announcing or just the pace or the energy or those people there, that the audience, they know all the fucking cues on the entrances and everything, but everybody, it makes sense as a program. I don't see something on one segment and think, well, how the fuck did that end up on this program? Where the other show is all over the page. And the first tag match, Fish and O'Reilly against Zach Gibson and James Drake, the fellows from the UK.
Bobby Fish is older than them. I know that.
Well, Bobby Fish is a freak. He was old when we were trying to get him in Ring of Honor more than 10 years ago, and he was in his 30s then, but he's a freak. But I bet you Tommaso Ciampa's equal age or younger than at least one of the Young Bucks.
Okay, you know what? I'm a bit surprised by this. I have a few ages here in front of me. Let's see how many of them you can get. I'm going to ask you some NXT and AEW ages.
All right. We're just breaking off into something totally unplanned now.
How old is Cody Rhodes?
Cody is 37.
34.
Okay.
How old is Keith Lee?
I really had never seen him before we started this project. But he obviously played football. He's almost 30.
35.
Wow.
How old is Kenny Omega?
Well, fuck, I saw him have a bad outlaw match on a Ring of Honor show in 2000 and fucking probably 8-ish. So let's say 34.
36.
Okay.
How old is Johnny Gargano?
34.
32. How old is Tommaso Ciampa?
Okay. I'm going to say he is 33 years old.
Close, 34, which is younger than I thought. I actually thought he was considerably older.
Yeah.
How old are Nick and Matt Jackson, Nick and Matt Massey, the Bucks of old?
37 and 35.
Matt Jackson, who's the older one, surprisingly, is 34. Nick Jackson is 30, the youngest of all these guys.
I thought they were closer together.
And that is the ages of the wrestlers.
So
everyone's in their 30s.
So one of the Bucks is older than Tommaso Ciampa.
Or the same age.
Or same age, okay.
But Tommaso's younger than Kenny Omega, which surprised me, actually.
And Keith Lee, holy shit. Well, we'll get to him in a minute. But anyway, yeah, the point is, this just looks like a show that young people would, I guess, this is a show that young people would like if they're looking at trying to take this seriously as a sport and as a competition and as an athletic endeavor instead of just a goddamn goof show, I guess. Because it blows it away on all counts. Anyway, with Fish and O'Reilly, I love the Undisputed Era's entrance. All four of these guys, they all look like they belong together, just like the classic Horsemen did. They've got charisma. I would have pushed these guys to the moon if I'd had them on a roster. Wait a minute, I did. Except for Fish, we had him right before I left. But yeah, O'Reilly and Roddy and fucking Adam Cole and they. Anyway, this match was athletic as fuck. The one thing that was wrong with it that they couldn't do anything about was that the people liked the heels better than the English guys, even, and I guess the English guys are nominally heels, but the people like Undisputed Era better than they like the English guys. So they got a set of heat first on one of the English guys, Drake, and then gave a so-so hot tag to Gibson. I did just, and a so-so comeback. And then they went to break. And by the time they got back from break, they'd stopped O'Reilly and got some heat on him so he could get a hot tag to Bobby Fish. And Fish makes a good comeback, but the heels are getting bigger babyface pops. That's what comes when the people realize it's a show and okay, these heels are really fucking good, so we're going to cheer for them. And they should have went ahead and I don't know. But anyway, that's the only thing that hurt the match. All the guys did excellent. But the fans were cheering for the heels. They did the Undisputed Era did a really nice double team finish for a 2 count. And then it became scrambled eggs and a lot of backslap tags, which this is an epidemic, especially in NXT. And I can't believe Apparently somebody has just said, oh, it's okay to do this because it's easier. Because no veterans teach this, that you can slap a guy on his shoulder and that's a tag. So apparently they've just changed it. It's still, when the Revival does it right, it still looks a whole lot cooler. But anyway, Imperium came out and distracted Fish and O'Reilly so that Gibson and Drake could win, and that was fine because they're still the tag team champions, but these guys moved on in the tournament, and the reason was Imperium appeared. But have you noticed on these two shows, at least 3, maybe 4 times, somebody just appears in the arena or on a screen, and the dumb fuck that's getting distracted just has to stand there and go, oh, and then they get beat. If they're going to make a distract, could there at least be a reason for them to be there? Could they at least just run down and try to get involved? Could there be something otherwise that I'm just going to stand there and watch these guys on a platform 30 feet away from me stand there and get beat? Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean that, and plus every time someone comes out, no matter what the situation is, their music has to play. It has to announce that they're coming out, and then very often they will stand on the little platform and do their Broadway pose or whatever. Everyone has now like a custom pose they do in wrestling, and I hate that. But
if the goddamn heel just came out dressed as the popcorn guy with a big fucking tray of popcorn in front of his face and fucking suddenly threw a box right in the fucking babyface's way, or right at him, right as he turns around, he goes, what the fuck, it's you, and then boom, schoolboy, whatever the fuck, instead of just standing there forever. Anyway, it was a good tag match, but had those issues that I mentioned. What
do you think of the name of the team, the Grizzled Young Veterans?
Well, no, that's not going to be whatever the fuck they actually become stars with. I'm not saying that they're not good wrestlers, but no, they got a lot of weird names, as we will get to on this program. Not names that sound like they would be names.
One other question for you. I enjoyed the match. I thought it was good, but I did have an epiphany during it. I was thinking back to the Monday Night Wars or war. I guess shouldn't be pluralized technically. There are a lot of matches on those shows. I don't remember too many that went 20 minutes. And it seems nowadays between both companies, we have a lot of long matches. Do you think that's good or bad? Obviously, you have a lot of television time to fill up. And in the case of one company, it may not have the giant roster to fill up that show and keep it fresh each week. But
no, you don't know. The matches don't need to be 20-something fucking minutes. That needs to be special, not regular. In OVW, I shoehorned everything I could shoehorn into that 1-hour show and was down to timing VTRs within 15 seconds to put it all in. And I was running a wrestling school. I didn't have a billionaire's budget, and both sides have a billionaire's budget. So I'm sure I could have, and I still didn't have long, drawn-out, multiple-segment matches unless it was built up to where it meant something. An OVW championship match, a loser leave town match, something, a big blow-off, whatever. Because you can get all your guys in, and you don't just have to put them all out there and have them wrestle for 20 minutes. Show them on I always had a checklist when I was writing a television format, whether it be OVW, Ring of Honor, Smoky Mountain, whatever, of all my talent. I wanted all the main event guys to both work and talk in some fashion, whether it was being wrestling and then being heard in a VTR or a live interview, but also I wanted them to be VTR'd from the previous week. What did they do? So I had a checklist where, some guys, as long as they were represented, if they were on the card, well, they're in a VTR or they're working in a match or they're talking in a pre-tape. But my main event guys would work and would talk and would be seen in VTRs and blah, blah, blah. And I would have a scale to make sure everybody was represented. And I still had trouble getting everybody in a wrestling school show or in a small territory, because you create things to fit the fucking format of your program. You don't just send guys out there to have 20-minute fucking matches all the time. So there's variety, there's recaps, there's pre-tape promos, there's live promos, there's matches, there's fucking angles. And, so pretty much the first half hour of that show was the tag match, which that's great every once in a while, but not all the fucking time. Anyway, Toni Storm versus Io Shirai. I came away with two impressions. I liked Toni Storm before, but after later on watching the other show and seeing Priscilla Kelly's, Toni Storm looks like Chigusa Nagayo. And secondly, Io Shirai is what AEW wishes Riho was. Io doesn't act like a scared 10-year-old, and Storm has been to a decent wrestling school and is gorgeous and looks like a star. So, anyway, this went long, but there wasn't that much wrong with it. And suddenly Bianca Belair interferes for the DQ and gets a little heat. And here comes Rhea Ripley, and everybody just went nuts beating each other up. The angle afterwards I liked, was pretty good. The match was okay, and Rhea Ripley's just incredible. Just her look and everything she does.
But that's an example there of one of those times where, and I agree with you, I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan, but she comes out, her music has to play. She has to stand there and do her pose.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all obviously staged, but,
Yeah.
we're grading on what it is. One of my favorite moments of the night came up next. Finn Balor versus Joaquin Wilde. DJ Zema Ion. I can't remember what his real name even is. He was at a Ring of Honor tryout camp years ago. He was good even then. He's had some health issues and injuries. But this was the best piece of business of either show both nights because it accomplished exactly what it should have. Finn Balor's a star. He looks badass. His shit looks extra badass like the Dynamite Kids. It was a great squash match where he was in control of this whole thing. He is in control of his facials. He was in control of his body language. I don't know why the fuck that it's hard for them on NXT or for AEW at all to do this, but just put a star out there and have him beat the fuck out of somebody and get him over. If some of the people that were supposed to be stars on AEW had done this first, they might be stars now. It was the simplest thing and the best thing, and boy, he looks like fucking... He looks like Dynamite Kid without the bad habits, because when I first saw Dynamite, I said, my God, that guy looks like he could kill anybody and he could run 50 miles. It just, he's a physical freak, and Balor looks fucking incredible. And all the shit that he does, I'm sure it's snug, but they wouldn't let him do it if it looked as good, if it felt like it looks. I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I thought it was really good. I am someone who wasn't a Finn Balor fan, and then once he got to NXT, I've really enjoyed him since he's been back in NXT, since he left the main roster. I think he fits in better. I think he's really good. I've really enjoyed him in NXT, and it was a good match.
Next was Shayna Baszler versus Shotzi Blackheart. And I've got to be honest, you'll probably be able to fill me in on this because I like Shayna Baszler, but I saw Shotzi Blackheart. I wrote, what the fuck is the gimmick? A helmet with horns. She's howling. She has green hair. I went to get ice cream and Shayna Baszler choked her out. Did I miss anything?
Not much. Apparently she's a big Joan Jett fan. That's why her name is Mitzi Blackheart. And that was it.
Okay.
Shotzi Blackheart. Excuse me. Thinking of Mitzi.
Mitzi
I'm
Shotzi.
thinking of Mitzi Shore. And
Mitzi Shore.
Shotzi Blackheart. Excuse me.
Well, you'll never make the Comedy Store now. Okay. Anyway, Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle versus Barthel and Eichner. Here's where I have an issue. I think that Imperium as a group looks cool. The German, fucking very European, the stances they have. Walter is a fucking star. I love him. But the other three guys, their names are so fucking made up that you can't, it's not like Kurt Von Hess and Carl Von Schatz. What is it? Marcel Barthel and Fabian Eichner, and the other guy is who? I can't remember. And then the Barthel and Eichner wrestled, and they are in identical outfits and an identical shade of pale, except one guy has a little hair and the other one doesn't. But in quick action, it's hard to tell them apart because they look so similar. They're great athletes, but I just don't like the names and the fact that when they all come out together, even though they even have their names on the screen, but what's like the goddamn shell game, once they start mixing up the order of them, you can't keep. Is it just me?
I don't like the names either, but I'm actually right now doing a quick search because someone had told me that they may not all be made up names.
Well, then somebody needed to make one up.
Okay, Marcel Barthel is apparently his real name.
Oh, well, that's why the Crusher didn't go by Reggie Lisowski for his entire career.
Fabian Eichner, and boy, does that sound German. And he's not German, actually. Look at this. But that apparently is his real name. Alexander Wolf, his real name is Axel Tischer.
Can we get some fucking names? Is all I've said. Marcel Barthel and Fabian Eichner are their real names. All right. Is Walter his real name?
Hold on. Now I have to find out. Let's see. Let me click on Walter. It has to be. Although I believe it's pronounced Walter. His real name is Walter Hahn.
Well, fuck, that's great.
From Vienna, Austria.
Yeah, well, of course he is.
32 years old.
See, that's gorgeous. Anyway, all right. So there, I've registered that complaint. I'm not sure about Matt Riddle. He's so just the out of the body language and just the silly and he's one of those awkward style guys to work with. I'm sure. But everything's silly and I don't know. I like Pete Dunne. That crucifix bomb thing. I have never seen that or anything close to that. Do you remember that when he went up and did the crucifix where he's up on the guy's back and suddenly flips the guy over backwards on his fucking head?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that before either.
At least there were heels and baby faces here, clearly. Okay, but as I was watching this match, here's the problem. I was watching this match and it was pretty good. Like I said, good athletes and there were babyface and heels. Why did the referee look like he was wearing blackface?
What?
I dare anybody go back and watch this match from what was last night, January 22nd.
Yes.
Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle against the German guys on the NXT show. And now look at the referee and you will never be able to unsee this. The back of his head was white. His face was dark. Once that I noticed it, all I could see, especially in the long shots for the rest of the match, I don't know what they were doing. It looked like the referee was wearing blackface. I defy somebody to tell me what the fuck was going on with this guy's complexion. I'm so mad I deleted the
you deleted
now. Yeah,
I'm looking for the video now. I'm gonna take a look. I'm gonna find this.
I'm just telling you, I don't know what the fuck was going on, but the front of his face and the back of his head was two completely different colors, and I don't know. But anyway, this match they all ended up hitting 1 million finishes, and suddenly Dunne and Matt Riddle won, and it got out of hand. I thought, but then Dunne and Riddle and the English guys that won the Drake and Edwards did a stagey confrontation on the stage. I no pun intended, stagey confrontation with the trophy, a promo knocking each other with no interviewer. It looks so phony. They're standing awkwardly. There's no body language like there's animosity or there's tension. Riddle's making jokes and blowing the whole thing off because that's supposed to be his gimmick. There's nobody to separate these guys if they were really supposed to get up in each other's face or we're going to do it. It's just back and forth scripted banter with no real passion and animosity. I would, if I'd have been one of those guys to wake those people up, I'd have gone and slapped the fuck out of the other guy. And what was that? Was what Dick Beyer did one time to fucking Baba, right? Or he just walked up and slapped him, or it was one of those matches and said, come back, or what? No, Kowalski maybe. Anyway. Whatever the fuck, just liven this shit up. Get up in each other's faces and start cussing at each other or something. Make it look legitimate. Anyway, what'd you think? And did you get anywhere with that video search?
I did, and it appears that he, I'm guessing, does some tanning or uses some tanning lotion on his skin.
That went drastically awry. Look, he looks like
he's
you
very,
see the whites of his eyes. He looks like a fucking raccoon.
He is very dark. I have to say that. But I actually went the other way a little bit on. With Riddle, there is a unique charisma there, and people react to him. And I thought he was the only one on that promo after the match that did good, because it kind of sounded like things he would really say. The other guy from the Grizzled Young Veterans, it was, like you said, really stagey, really fake sounding. I can't get into Pete Dunne. And I know everyone tells me how good he is, and he's obviously talented, but I don't know if it's just because he looks dumpy, and I'm not trying to insult him, but just there's something that I just can't get into Pete Dunne. I don't know what it is. There's something missing when I watch him.
Maybe he's not done yet. He's still developing. He's not done.
Perhaps.
Anyway, but then we come to the star of our show, ladies and gentlemen, the North American title match, Keith Lee and Roderick Strong. Holy fuck. And I can't believe I'm astonished that Keith Lee's 35 years old, because one of the things that I was going to say in this goddamn review was that, especially for his weight and his size, to go this long at that pace that Roddy was getting out of him. And I heard Roddy at one point was like, "Get up, Keith." You could hear him because, Roddy's staying on him. He's the leader of the match. But his cardio, he's a freak. How can you move that much weight, that fast, that long, etc.?
Well, I don't have an answer for that.
Well, apparently not. You don't. But he's a freak. I'm just asking. But these guys together are magic. The styles blend. Roddy keeps him in the match. He keeps his facials and his aggression up. He's smaller, but he takes the bumps. He can show Lee's, power and show the strength off, and he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, his offense is believable. They went for the leg. The spot with the steps on the ankle was fucking great. And to his credit, I don't even know how long Keith Lee's been wrestling, but he sold well. And you wouldn't think a guy that size has had that much experience with it. As Dr. Tom said earlier in the program, a lot of this is experience, being in front of people and getting it. And he was selling it. A couple times he forgot to limp, but he sold it really well. The announcing, especially in this match, but I thought it was sharp all night. Everybody knows where they are. Everybody knows what they're trying to sell. Sometimes they get a little silly, but Beth Phoenix is getting more comfortable. The things that one thing took away from this match for me, that whatever they were trying to set up off the top rope was a buzz killer. And I wish they wouldn't do that, especially when you get a guy that size. It's obvious there's cooperation. You can't disguise it. When you got a guy that size, and having to slow climb and perch on ropes while Roddy's strong enough. Roddy is incredibly strong, especially for his body weight. You wouldn't believe how strong that fucking guy is. And especially at a deadlift type of situation, he was going to give him the angle slam off the fucking top, but the ropes, he couldn't get on the ropes. He couldn't get under him right. I think Keith Lee may have had his foot in the wrong place. You saw Roddy try to reposition it. He stayed with it a little longer than I would have before he gave up, and then finally he went back and got something different. But I just don't like those spots because it obviously takes cooperation to perch up there on the top rope that long with an opponent, supposedly. But otherwise than that, they'll probably bring the spot back and do it again where they went for the pounce over the top, because that didn't go. Keith Lee hit him so fucking hard. You could go back and see Roddy jumped with it, but Keith Lee propelled him forward so fast that Roddy's jump didn't get him to clear the top rope, and he just went into the top and cartwheeled over it. I'm glad those guys were there to break a little bit of his fall, but mostly the apron was there to break his fall. But Roddy stayed on him, and then they didn't do a deal where he just was a pinball for a huge comeback where Lee went from zero to hero overnight in a second. It finally, Keith Lee hit that fucking power slam, jackhammer, whatever the fuck he calls it, out of nowhere. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And he got a huge fucking pop. Because what a match. And they made it believable. It was like 30 years ago when I was watching Ernie Ladd work with Ricky Morton. Only this time, instead of Ernie being the veteran, the giant leading it, it was the fucking little guy that was leading the giant. But same thing. It made sense. I have no finish for this bit, so I will take a small bow.
I thought it was really good. I'm very high on Keith Lee, and Roddy Strong's one of those guys that, he proved me wrong. I was never a fan of him in Ring of Honor. I just thought he was bland. He didn't bring anything to the table, and
he was. Well, he brought plenty to the table, but you only knew you only knew if it was in the ring,
right? But he now, like you brought up earlier for the tag team match, how you like the four of them coming out together. He may exude the most charisma at all of them when they come out.
Yeah, whatever has happened, because I tried and struggled, and many people were witness to it, and Roddy will probably admit to it, to get him to do promos with any passion and emotion, and now, he's over the top. And so, but he really, and he's been in the business now easily 15 years, but he's still young and obviously in tremendous shape. So...
You think it was the right time to put the North American belt on Keith Lee?
Well, if you're going to book that match, I think now was probably the time, because if he'd got beat again, you can't beat a giant or deprive a giant of his goal like that for too long before the people get convinced, well, maybe he's just not going to do it. You can beat Ricky Morton up like a drum and let him, chase the title forever before he gets it. But a giant like that can't be foiled too many credible ways. And then I did like the way they closed it. They got the huge pop with Keith Lee, winning the title. But then, so as not to leave Roddy like a plate full of piss, as Reeser Bowden would say, here comes Imperium, and they get in a 4-on-4 with the Era and a big brawl and craziness. And I also love the one spot in the middle of the brawl that one time Walter and Adam Cole face off, block the kick, and chop him, and Cole takes a fucking backflip. The chop sounded like a goddamn rifle shot, and the people blew for one chop and the way Cole sold it. And instead of, goddamn, on the other channel, somebody may have been eviscerated and thrown into thumbtacks or whatever. But we'll get to that in a moment. But
I know we're not there yet, but I'm waiting for Keith Lee versus Walter.
Boy, now that will be interesting, because that's one of those matches that unless they have it in practice first and figure out a way to make it really good, they shouldn't have it at all. Because people's appetites would be whetted just like ours were just a second ago, to the point where if it's not outstanding, then they might be outstanding in the fucking street. But if they can put something really good together, that will be, and of course Walter would be the leader there, but that might be interesting. Anyway, your final NXT thoughts.
This goes to my original comment. There were things I really liked, and I really liked the North American title match, and I was looking forward to it. But I felt there were things on the show that went too long, so that I wasn't as excited when the match actually aired than I was when the show first started. I understand it's a tag team tournament. You want the matches to have some weight to them, but the first match went 20 minutes, and that kind of set the tone for me. And again, I think about the Monday Night War, and a lot of us used to complain, WCW, they put these great guys out there, they have 6-minute matches. I don't know. The older I get, the more I'm seeing the allure of the 6-minute match on some of these shows. Not every match has to go through the commercial break. Even if I'm into a match, if it's the picture-in-picture, I lose interest.
Yo, yeah. No, I can't watch that fucking thing. And if somebody's watching a regular television rather than a big screen, it's ridiculous. But I agree with you, and that's and plus 20 years ago, more of those guys could have gone 20 minutes, probably, because they had more experience at it than these guys today. But they're doing everything, but it's always the matches that really get over are the ones that are different, that make sense, but that also are different than your average match. And, some of these are and some of them aren't. As a matter of fact, on the other channel, the first match was for the All Elite Tag Team Championship. Paige and Omega against SCU. And this was a half an hour fucking production on the other channel. So it's not like they're counter programming. It's just all 30-minute tag team matches between 8 and 8:30, right? They're still doing the thing where Paige and Olivier are cross purposes, going to break up. Are they getting along? What the fuck? They're teasing all that shit. But God damn it, they've already botched the thing up, had the fuck up and hit each other, whatever the fuck. I don't know what they're doing. Why do they, at this point, why do they still trust each other, or are they teaming? And then Olivier's entrance video makes it look like he's airing his home videos as a tourist in Japan.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, I've noticed it before, but it's like, why? If you're trying to hype him up to come out, why are we watching him casually walk through the streets of Tokyo with his backpack on?
Yeah, and then when he did that, I was jumping ahead. When he did the interview later on with him, it was just like, man, he's just mealy-mouthed. And he looks like a fucking guy that wanders around the streets of Japan and comes in and makes a lot of faces and points his fingers and does prissy-prancy jazz dancing. And he's wishy-washy verbally. And I don't know. This match was like an old time spot show match. We say all the time on this program they do too much. In this case, they didn't do anything. It took forever to get started. There were no baby faces and heels because the people on that. And by the way, the fans did not look like a bunch of people I want to be on a fucking boat with. I'll tell you that. But the fans like everybody, so they're cheering for everybody. So instead of a face-heel dynamic, each guy just did some moves to each other. More backslap, blind tags and stuff. SCU kind of became heels when they cut Adam Page off. Got some heat on him. Excalibur still sounds like a fucking guy that won an amateur contest to get to call a match with the real pro guys. Olivier looks like an awkward swan have you noticed when he's doing anything but his moves, when he's trying to throw a kick or a stomp, he raises his leg up and down like a fucking long stork-legged bird. And his punches are, when he has to kick or punch or fight, is just, they did simultaneous cold tags out of a set of fucking heat. Blick. Why? Paige finally hits Olivier with the buckshot lariat. And then Scorpio Sky gets a 2 count. And they went to break. It's 20 minutes in already. They've had the point where the one guy misses his move and hits his partner with his big finish, the buckshot lariat, but it's not enough to put his partner down for more than a 2 count by the tag team champion. And then they go to break. And I did try to watch the picture-in-picture here where they did every devastating move ever to Olivier and Adam Page, and they did another simultaneous cold tag in the picture-in-picture. Then they came back up on the air, and there was Olivier and Adam Page working together as a team and fresh as daisies. Go back and watch this whole thing again now that I just said that and tell me that the things that I just recounted to you did not fucking happen. And then Paige hits the buckshot lariat outside on fucking Scorpio Sky and inside on fucking Frankie Kazarian and 1, 2, 3. So basically, and that was the only impressive thing, honestly, about this match. But basically, he established he can hit the tag team champions with it and beat them, but he hits Olivier, his partner, with it, but that's only worth a 2 count. And I don't fucking know. And then to help celebrate the tag team title change that took almost a half an hour, here come the Balding Bucks or the Young Fucks, whichever their new name should be, dressed like college fucks on spring break. baggy shorts, looked like flip-flops, some kind of fucking sockless footwear, baggy T-shirts, and goddamn a backwards baseball cap, looking like children just jumped over the rail and they're helping the fucking guys that don't really like each other celebrate. I don't fucking know. So that was 30 minutes. But then it was saved because guess what happened right at 8:30, right at prime bottom of the hour channel switching time. Guess what happened, Brian?
I don't recall the order of events.
2 nationally unknown young lady wrestlers were on their way to the ring on TNT at 8:30. After a 30-minute fucking tag team match where they did it backwards. So this show already was in the fucking drink. But, I mean, talk to me about the fucking tag team match.
I mean, I'll repeat what I said, I think, last week. I'm finally interested in Adam Page. They still haven't explained exactly what this dynamic with him and Omega is. I said it last week. It just seems like Adam Page has a drinking problem and Kenny's his sober friend, hoping that somehow can get him back to being the person he was. And new tag team champions. In terms of the overall picture, it does create an interesting dynamic where the team that everyone thought would be the champions coming into AEW, the Young Bucks, now they're, I guess Adam Page is also in their elite group. Now 2 other members of the elite are the tag team champions, so where does that lead you? Despite what you think of the individual wrestlers, it is an interesting dynamic. It's just the booking doesn't always explain everything or why things are happening or where things are going. But
well, now that you brought it up all like that, all right, but anyway, here comes, we finally get to see Priscilla Kelly, the tampon girl. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she pulled what was purported to be her used tampon out at a show in a dive bar and shoved it in another girl's mouth to get on the internet. This is who they're hiring over on TNT.
Darby Allin's wife.
Well, there you go. So nepotism and all the other isms. I said earlier that after seeing Priscilla Kelly, Tony Storm looks like Chigusa Nagayo, Britt Baker morphed into Mildred Burke. They have, Britt Baker has, I think, pretty much been winless as a single on their air. And Priscilla Kelly has never been seen before on national television. And they start them out at 8:30 and then immediately go to a break after Priscilla Kelly. And this is where the first thing I wrote, Priscilla Kelly can't lock up. The first move of the match, when she goes to lock up with Britt Baker, I swear to God, she would have been screamed at by Dr. Tom Prichard in wrestling school. The girl couldn't lock up, and here we go, and now we're going through a break. And on the other side, it was bad indie girl wrestling. And finally, Britt Baker gets a win over somebody that's not even ready to fucking work spot shows on this national television program. I've been championing Britt Baker. She's an American. She speaks English. People will actually like her, not like Riho. She is attractive and she's professional and she can do PR because she speaks the language, unlike Riho. She's a dentist and a professional woman, gives the young girls somebody to look up to, play off of this, get mainstream publicity. What do, Brian? They're not only switching her heel, they didn't tell her how to be a heel. Have you ever seen anybody twisting in the wind on television on an interview like that in your life?
Literally in the wind.
In the wind, on a boat. And by the way, I guess we should have mentioned, yes, they're on the Jericho cruise. The boat, the 60-mile-an-hour winds. If the WWE was going to do a wrestling show on a boat, it wouldn't have looked like this. For any other promotion to do a wrestling show on a boat, that's a cool thing. But when you're a promotion that's saying not only you're going head to head with the WWE, but you're going to kick their ass before you ever even get on the air, that's what they were saying. No, this looked like a wrestling show on a boat, not like a WWE event on a boat would look, is all I'm saying. And the fact JR came wear his fucking hat, the wind's blowing. And it was like, Tony, I don't know. Tony Schiavone's voice sounded shot. He has too many jobs, I think. He's wearing himself thin. She not only says he was a shitty barista at Starbucks, apparently we can say shitty now on TNT, and there wasn't there one or two goddams. But this was a bad wrestling school promo that you would take somebody off the street and say, act like a wrestling heel. And this is what she was doing. Not only was it not in any way realistic, or where did this come from, or what the fuck after the past 4 months, why she's suddenly this bitch, but it didn't make any sense and she never got to a point. It was like they had told her something. She went completely blank, started trying to be a heel, had no idea how to. And right in the middle of her meandering, JR says, well, we don't need to hear any more of this. We'll be right back. And it's a taped show and they still cut it off. What the fuck? I felt bad for her, but why is she in this? Why did they even bring this girl into company? If they're going to, the only marketable female that they've had, that they could have started with, that they've beat her to death with all the Japanese schoolgirls. They've made the other American girls are now more impressive than she is because they've had better showcases. She finally gets a win, but now they're turning her heel, and she doesn't know how to be one. And somebody finally gets a fucking promo. Oh, God damn it. Anyway, we're 45 minutes into this fucking thing. And that's what we've seen. And here comes a 6-man tag, and it ain't going to get any better. I know the action may have, but to me, the logic did not. 6-man tag, Santana and Ortiz, who are, I guess, no longer proud and powerful, which sounded more like a fucking, possibly a lesbian march than a fucking heel tag team. Santana and Ortiz, and the biggest star in the company, Chris Jericho, versus Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Stunted Growth. Yes, Luchasaurus should be a big star, but they've pretty much made him a comedy fucking figure. Jungle Boy can be a tremendous babyface, but they have saddled both of them with this fucking freak show bullshit partner of theirs, and they have now allowed this idiot child to grapple in the ring one-on-one with Chris Jericho, and Jericho said okay, and I'm disappointed in Chris. Even if he did beat him and he got heat with the crowd because they like this fucking little idiot, but fucking hell. And the heels are more popular than the baby faces. It's no wonder they can't have logical matches, but the heels were more popular here again than the baby faces.
Well, to be fair, it is Jericho's cruise, so it's not like they're going to boo him on his own cruise. They were watching his rock concert the night before.
Yes, but goddamn it, then just try to not make it a goddamn joke. This fucking little twerp, he looked like a little girl wearing a life preserver. It was phony, choreographed bullshit, which is the last thing that Chris Jericho needs to be in for this company's sake, because he's the one drawing the money and pretty much carrying the goddamn thing. They got all kinds of heat on Jungle Boy, and then Jungle Boy made his own comeback and then gave Luchasaurus a bland, cold tag. And then somehow Luchasaurus goes and fights fucking Jake Hager back to the goddamn Baskin Robbins where Jake's kids are waiting, where he works part-time as a real estate agent, the way he dresses. And there is Stunt's tagged in, and there's Marco Stunt and Chris Jericho, and Marco Stunt got, it was either 2 or 3 quick little roll-up near falls before Jericho just knocks him out. So this was just a waste of 15 minutes of national television time and detrimental to the fucking company. And you can't tell me that anybody, once again, the idea is to make new viewers. You're in between 700,000 and 1 million forever? Because what person who knows who Chris Jericho is and has liked wrestling in the past that might turn on this program that would see Chris Jericho wrestling what looks like she would have looked like a little grade school girl, except he was topless. And they go, what the fuck? Now Jericho needs the money that bad, apparently. That's what they're thinking. It's not true. He's got money. I thought he had common sense. But that's what people will think. Why else would he be in that position? And here's Chris, instead of Chris Jericho being a big star, as he's looked in a lot of cases, on this brand new national television program on TNT, it looked suddenly like there's poor Chris Jericho on a boat on an outlaw show wrestling a kid. That's what this visual gave me. And we're an hour into this goddamn thing.
Hey, who has an easier job in wrestling than Jake Hager? Seriously, he hasn't had one match. He hasn't done really too much physical stuff.
Well, but you know what? The thing is, he's the only one that anybody believes probably watching AEW can actually whip anybody.
Because he can, yeah.
Because he can, and they presented it that way. Anyway, here's my biggest bitch. We're going to get this out of the way, and then we'll finish this fucking program. Like I said, one of them dunked, and one of them drowned. Here comes MJF. And everybody's going to think, oh, he hated it because he had to wrestle Jelly Nutella. Well, that's a small part of it. I keep saying just give MJF a good solid win, and they end up putting him against a fucking goof job guy, but still it's a good win for MJF, I'm thinking. Let me just also mention this. Once again, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, his physique is looking good now. The body language, the pace, the attitude, the facials, everything is flawless. It's a shame he had so little to work with here. They took it through a break, but still he was controlling most of the pace of everything, so it couldn't go, too far wrong. But there was no reason for MJF to take this long to beat. And let's face it, he's an underneath guy. If they're going to use him as anything, that's what he is. But then suddenly, they go through a break, and back from the break, Jelly Nutella gives MJF a superplex off the top rope. And, of course, MJF sold it like $1 million. But I'm thinking, Brian, even when there was a top guy and a top guy on to get a win on Raw 20 years ago when everything was making money, did Aldo Montoya ever superplex Shawn Michaels off the top rope?
No, never. No.
Okay, so I can't, and MJF's a nice guy. He's trying to get along, but no, he shouldn't have gone for that. Not only to take the risk on being injured when he's a valuable commodity, but also because Jelly Nutella is nobody to give MJF a goddamn superplex off the top rope. But then once again, here comes Superbad Kip Sabian and Super Slut, whatever her fucking name is, his girl.
No.
That I don't give a fuck. This fucking goddamn romantic triangle bullshit. She was apparently fucking jelly, so apparently there's something the matter with her. She's not the tampon girl, but there's got to be something the matter with her because she was fucking the blob of jelly, and now she's with Superbad. They come out on the stage at the entranceway and kiss. And this distracts Jelly Nutella so that MJF can hit his finish. Number one, they distracted the babyface. The babyface nominally in this, because nobody's the heel against MJF. The babyface is Nutella. So he looks like an idiot because he stands there and watches his girlfriend that he got fucking thrown over by kissing another guy in the entranceway and gets beat by the heel because he's an idiot. You made the babyface look stupid. Not to mention the fact that MJF needs a distraction to beat Jelly Nutella. In what universe? Once again, when did fucking Shawn Michaels need fucking distraction from Kevin Nash to beat Aldo Montoya?
Yeah, and that's the least bad thing they did with MJF in this segment.
Well, I was about to say, and then at least he gets a win. And then here comes fucking Cody. And Cody out to confront MJF, and they have built this thing up where MJF's got all that heat, and you can't touch me. You can't touch me or you won't get your match, and you've got to do this, you've got to be whipped, you got to be that. They've built it up, and Cody can't touch him. And MJF is really getting the fucking heat up, and then here come, once again, these two children dressed like high school kids on spring break and the same size. Actually, no, I know large high school kids. And they super kick MJF and throw him in the fucking swimming pool because they've been joking about, nobody's gone in the pool yet. That's where they need a manager. Or that's where they need a mid-card heel like a Buddy Landell was in Mid-South. Or somebody that could have took the bump in the pool and got mileage out of it. But no, you fucking morons. Isn't Cody even fit? It's his own deal. There's no way you should have touched MJF and take heat off of him, blow steam off of him with shit like this. When you're leading to a fucking pay-per-view, Cody is over, and he's going to be over regardless of what happens. With this audience especially, now's the time to take MJF up. Don't have him fucking around with the young fucks. These two stupid school children. Don't get them in the way. Don't have them super kicking him. Don't throw him in the goddamn swimming pool. Oh, boy, I really want to fucking buy that pay-per-view to see that MJF get the shit kicked out of him. Oh, he just went in the pool. Well, okay, maybe I don't have to buy the pay-per-view.
That was nitro booking right there.
You know what? Here's what they should have done. If they were thinking, oh, there's going to be a pool nearby. I know, because I've been in many conversations backstage and dressing rooms like this. Was there going to be a pool? Well, somebody's got to go in the pool. Well, who'd go in the pool? MJF. They'd love to see him go in the pool. Well, let's let MJF go in the pool. For a momentary little ha-ha on their free television show and for people on a cruise, you just sacrificed the whole point of your goddamn pay-per-view main event. But that's all right. But here's what they should have done. After MJF finished beating Jelly Nutella without a distraction from his fucking former fucking whore girlfriend, the girlfriend that whored herself out to Jelly and is now whoring herself out to fucking Superbad Sabian. None of that. Instead, MJF should have just beaten Jelly Nutella middle of the ring with Cody Rhodes' finish, the Crossroads.
5 minutes.
As he did the double cross in 5 to 7 minutes. And then he should have taken Jelly to the pool. And he should have said, hey, you want to see somebody go in a pool, you fucking wise asses? Here you go. And they'd throw him in a pool. And then everybody would have laughed at Jelly Nutella. And MJF would have got some heat because he would be asshole-ish in the way he did it. And then Jelly would start crawling out of the pool. And then MJF would go over the side and stick his fucking right foot on top of Jelly's head and push him back under. He is now going to drown Jelly Nutella in this fucking pool. And I mean to the point where here comes some goddamn referees and maybe even a fucking camera guy puts his camera down and MJF knocks their dick stiff and goes back to trying to drown Jelly Nutella, who now they're throwing life preservers in the goddamn pool and he's holding this motherfucker down like Betty Davis and Joan Crawford would to each other in one of those old 60s fucking movies. He's going to drown this cocksucker. And here comes Cody Rhodes. And when Cody shows up, MJF backs away and Cody dives in and pulls Jelly out and starts giving him the goddamn CPR and is saving his fucking life. Well, we got to make sacrifices for the angle. If he pulls through, he pulls through. And he's looking up at MJF screaming, Max, are you out of your fucking mind? Have you gone insane? You fucking lost it. MJF was trying to drown the fucking guy. Cody saves his life. Cody's a babyface. Cody goes over like he wants to punch MJF, and MJF says, go ahead and do it. One shot, and you'll never get another one. Wait till the match, and you can punch me as much as you're man enough to, you fucking asshole, and walks off and leaves Cody standing there. That's the way you fucking sell a goddamn pay-per-view, you fucking amateur twits.
That's really good. They treated the best natural heel they have, and maybe the best natural heel in the entire business, like a jerk-off on their show as they're building up this big feud with him and Cody.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me want to see the cage match with Wardlow more than I did last week. On a bright side, I'll give a compliment to Jelly Nutella. It always, because he has such a non-wrestler physique, it always looks like his pants are going to fall down, and they never do.
I think he's got them taped. It's like the boob tape that the girls wear. He's got ass cheek tape on.
No, it infuriated me, that segment, because even when Cody came out, I was like, you know what? I wouldn't do this, have them face to face right now while you're building this up, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me, do something interesting. And as soon as the Bucks of old come out, shushing everyone, don't say we're sneaking up behind this guy who can't hear us, I said, oh no. And then they took him to the pool, and I'm like, there goes his heat. And look, he's a brilliant guy. He'll get his heat back. It's not really about that, but it's just all you did was hurt the build to this match, which you have been building up, and this program you've been building up for weeks now, since the Jericho-Cody match. And even before that, where they were friends, there was no point to this. There was no reason for it. Someone should have said, this is a really bad idea. But it seems like there's never that person to say that.
Well, that's because there's no one person that, just because you've gone to fucking flight school and you've flown the simulator doesn't mean you can be Captain Sully and land the fucking plane on the Hudson. And just because a lot of these guys in practice have booked and written television and formatted things and come up with finishes, whatever, doesn't mean you can actually do it when there's actual fucking consequences and national television. Anyway, that piece of bullshit fiasco was followed by Shivani interviewing Paige and Olivier, where my notes. Kenny Olivier has no likable babyface quality on promos whatsoever. He comes off like a wishy-washy putz. Then Excalibur prefaces our main event, the number one contenders match, by talking about the winner will get a shot at the AEW World Championship title, because he's a fucking fan doing commentary in the basement. And then here came Jericho to join JR and Ass Mask, thank goodness. And then here comes Pac and Moxley for the number one contenders match. And since I watched NXT from 8 to 10 and then had now fucking endured almost 2 hours of All Elite Wrestling, I went to sleep. So I don't know what the fuck happened.
I ended up.
What happened?
You know what? I can't say if it was a good match or not because the show lost me.
Yeah.
And I also just didn't like the, it's the first time they've ever had a taped show, and I felt it. And it definitely is a big difference with AEW being live and AEW being on tape, where you hear some of the results, and it doesn't feel as urgent to see it.
It never feels urgent to me, but
I'm always curious what's going to happen. And they do have good segments on their show and some fantastic train wrecks on their shows. Jon Moxley won. He's the number one contender. Exactly what Jericho didn't want. I did want to get your opinion of this. Moxley has the eye patch on and eventually got ripped off because he got stabbed in the eye the week before with a spike by Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's videos of him on that cruise doing karaoke with the fans.
What?
No eye patch.
No.
At least I didn't see one. If someone wants to say there was an eye patch there, I didn't see it.
Okay, before I get hot, I want somebody to answer this question between now and next week's program. This may be a good cliffhanger to leave on, because I will bring down the fucking vengeance of the curse word gods with biblical proportion on some motherfucker that would get stabbed in the eye on last week's TV and have an eye patch on this week's TV and be on the boat with the fans doing karaoke with no eye patch. Somebody needs to tell me that was not the case, because I do not want to motherfuck this guy unnecessarily. But I promise you, if somebody tells me that Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, or whatever his name is this week, was on the cruise with the fans with no eye patch except on television, I will motherfuck this guy ceaselessly. Please do not tell me that is the case. Have you stirred me up for no reason, Brian Last?
I don't know, because I haven't actually watched the video. I only heard about it. I'm looking at it now. He definitely has something on his eyes. It looks like it could be sunglasses. I'm trying to confirm whether or not it's an eye patch or not.
We're trying to confirm whether it's sunglasses or whether it's so he did something.
Oh, he definitely did karaoke. He did Sweet Caroline with a bunch of...
No, I don't mean that. I mean, he did something over his eye, over his face. He's got the fucking Ray Charles glasses. There's something going on.
Or aviators. Yeah, it looks like he has sunglasses on.
But he's doing karaoke after he got stabbed in the eye.
Yeah, because wrestling's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to go have fun with the fans, even if you're the hardcore guy that comes through the crowd.
I wore a neck brace on Regis and Kathy Lee on the network because I got dropped on my head in Knoxville, by God. and they could take it or leave it. They got Jim Cornette to sell SummerSlam that day on Regis and Kathy Lee by allowing me to wear my neck brace, because we have to have standards here, folks. You know what they say? When you walk past something substandard and do nothing about it, it becomes the new standard. Well, as long as I'm around and as long as the Jim Cornette Experience is on the air, there will not be any outlaw mud show substandardness walked by and nothing done about it. I will say things. I will do things. I will call attention to things. I will not let cartoon outlaw mud show bullshit cosplay wrestling become the new standard. Because after all, Brian, that would be substandard, would it not?
It most certainly would be, and it most certainly is.
Well, there you go. All right. If you want to hear more about substandard wrestling programs on a substandard podcast, then you tune in next week to the Jim Cornette Experience, where we'll have all kinds of good shit that we ain't thought of yet. Anyway, thanks, Dr. Tom. We love you. For Brian, I'm Jim. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're done. Bye-bye. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye. We're out. Hasta lasagna. All the bonus weenies to you.